Brand disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by individuals on this platform, the callers plus invited guests, are their own. The information you hear does not reflect the overall views of all parties associated with this brand. We encourage everyone to research all things heard live or via archive for edification purposes. Discretion is advised.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
Help keep the show on the air. If you want to help, you can send your donation through PayPal. The email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com or through Cash App, $Sal Showtime. Thanks for your support.
Well, once again, people, we are looking forward to this particular segment. Again, this is Defending Your Words, Fact Check Vol.7. Let me introduce the special guest. My first special guest, we all know him. He's been here several times before, debating, bringing some information to the platform, having certain conversations and dialogues. This is the Messenger of Truth. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Sal. Nice hearing from you. How's everything?
Doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good. While I got you on the line, though, let people know why this is happening. A little brief,
Okay.
Preview. Good.
Okay. That's all we got here. Basically, I heard the gentleman on the show, as I've heard a number of different people, and he said some things which, to me, didn't sound validated. So it's quite a number of different things he said that just didn't sound validated to me. So I reached out to you and I said, hey, if he's willing, let's do some sort of show where I can question the things that he said. There will be no blind questions. It won't be asking anything that he's unfamiliar with. Everything that we'll be asking will be specifically something that came out of his mouth. I sent you the list. I told him pretty much a number of points when we talked in the three-way call. He was expressed interest. He agreed to it. And that's how we got here. So tonight I'm going to be questioning him on some things that he said. And, of course, as I told him in the three-way, I'll give him the time to explain himself or go into more detail than what he did when he was on the hot seat. And, of course, if I agree, then I agree. If I don't agree, then, of course, I will disagree with him following his answer. So that's basically how we got to this show tonight.
All right. Once again, it's Messenger of Truth. He's here live on Debate Talk for You. The number's 319-527-6239. For those people that's on social media, you want to check it out via phone. Once again, the number's 319-527-6239. Again, I see shout out to the Facebook people out there that's checking out the program. I appreciate you guys. And, of course, everybody on the phone lines. So my next special guest is here. He was in a hot seat for the first time a few weeks ago, and he is here once again representing Yah, our righteousness. This is YHWHudah Ben Yisrael. Welcome to the program.
For Yah righteousness, Jerusalem, and the Holy See. Peace, everyone. Yah bless.
All right, man. So how you feel about tonight, man?
Straight ahead, forwards and upwards.
All right. Is there any projects that's coming out that you want to say briefly before we begin? Anything that you want people to check briefly before we begin?
Last time I was on, I made a mistake in regards to Daniel chapter 2. I said that the first two visions Daniel got was in 602. I meant 604, the second year of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? It was the second year of Nebuchadnezzar, as you see in Daniel chapter 2, verse 1. All right? And that's why in 604 BCE is when Daniel got the first vision, 1136 to 1210 Daniel. He got the second vision, which consisted of Nebuchadnezzar's dream and the interpretation thereof. And that's why when you look at Daniel chapter 12, you'll see there when the angel was asked by another angel, the angel standing on the water dressed in linen, when he was asked how long it shall be toward the end of these wonders. To the end of these wonders, he said, times and a half, 2,500 years. And so when you take that 604 BCE, when this vision was given, and you add it to 1896, is what the year was when the 2 days, Hosea 6, or the 2,000 years that Israel was cut off and couldn't find Yah, when the book was sealed, as Daniel was told then, seal up the book until the time of the end. That's when the seal came off in 1896. So you add that 604 in 1896, you get 2,500. And that's where we, as of 1896, Yah could be found.
All right. Well, once again, that's YHWHudah ben Israel. And if you miss the hot seat, you can always go to the archives. You can always go to the YouTube page and type in the search box Debate Talk for You. Of course, we're on Blog Talk. Check out the archives there, or go to iTunes. That's right. We're in the Apple iTunes in the podcast section. Simply type in the search box Debate Talk for You. You can check out all the shows absolutely free. So make sure you subscribe. But this thing started. We're going to start with a 5-minute opening statements from each special guest. And once there's 2 minutes left of their time, you're going to hear this sound. All right. And then after that, of course, we're going to have the bell to wrap it up and go into the next opening statement. So we're going to start off with Messenger of Truth. Let's start off with him. And you can go ahead, brother.
Hey, Sal. There's really no need, I guess, to time me because I'm going to be very brief. I don't really have much of an opening statement since I don't really have anything planned to teach or debate or go through tonight. So essentially what I needed to say, I suppose, as a type of opening statement was already stated when you asked me how we got here. So looking forward to this. This would be, in many ways, this would be a true hot seat. I mean, a hot seat should be something where you're being challenged, where you're being asked challenging questions, not people calling in saying they like you or, what's up, my brother, and stuff like that. A hot seat's supposed to be a hot seat. If it's not hot, it's not a hot seat. So basically, this is going to be a type of a hot seat for the gentleman. I'm looking forward to it, looking forward to see what his answers will be. And again, not going to ask him anything that's new, or I'm not going to blindside him with anything that's fresh. Everything that I'm going to ask him, I told him on the phone. I also sent you a list, which I never really do, never really show anyone my hand, but just so that he can be prepared, I even provided the list in writing. So I'm looking forward to see what his answers would be tonight.
All right, and once again, I agree with that. The hot seat has definitely got to be hot. I appreciate it. That is true. That's a fact right there. I did also forward the emails that you sent me to YHWHudah ben Israel. So let's get this thing started, of course, but we're going to go to his YHWHudah statement as well. Let's give him 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Again, peace, everyone. To aid and abet any and out whomever's out there today or this evening to further the discernment of what you're going to hear me say here tonight, you can go to Yah Righteousness website, YahRighteousnessChicago.net. That's our website. Everything we've been doing since July 2006 is on that website. If one cares to get more in-depth on the things that I'm going to say here tonight. Also, I was told that there's some people out there that think I'm breaking the Sabbath by doing this evening. And again, I don't break the Sabbath for anyone, okay? And if one truly understands the word of Yah, and you go to chapter 58, Yeshaya, Isaiah, and particularly look at verse 10, you will see that this is what I do 7 days a week, even on the Sabbath day. I talk about Yah, I uplift and magnify Yah of hosts, he who creates, the King, founder, living water, spirit, and creator of all things. So I'm in my dwelling place, Leviticus 23, verse 3, Yah's Sabbath day, seventh day Sabbath is a holy convocation in all thy dwellings. And I'm in my dwelling place where I usually am on this Sabbath day. I've been acknowledging the Sabbath and doing it as it's supposed to be done now for, 30-something years. So I don't break the Sabbath day for anything. And so, again, I'm not speaking vanity, worthlessness. I'm uplifting the King, Yah of hosts. There's nothing that could be done that's better than that. So I'm ready.
Don't touch touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
All right, guys, so let's get this thing started. Fact Check Volume 7, Defending Your Words. We're going to start off with a Q&A round, and how it's going to work is we're going to start off, of course, the Messenger of Truth is going to have 1 minute to ask his question. YHWHudah is going to have 5 minutes to respond, and Messenger of Truth is going to have 4 minutes to rebuttal. So we're going to get this thing started. So let's start right now. As a matter of fact, before we get started, I just want to play the sound so everybody can know. Once the time is up, you're going to hear this sound. All right, so that's the sound you're going to be hearing periodically as the show goes on. So let's start this off. Let's go to Messenger of Truth. Go ahead.
All right. Let's try and get into this right away because, as you mentioned, I've got a minute to ask the question. The gentleman has 5 minutes to answer, and then I have 4 minutes to respond. I literally handicapped myself by giving myself 1 minute less, but that's basically a total of 10 minutes each question. So let's get started. In your first appearance on this platform, you claim that the New Testament was, and I quote, total idolatry, but you did not expressly state any idolatry contained within it. So tonight I'm asking you if you can validate your accusation of the New Testament being total idolatry with some examples of actual idolatry.
Well, that's easy. I mean, I said that on the first session we did. Again, when you go to the first page, it's going to say the New Testament of our Lord and Savior, YHWH the Anointed, or as it's basically said in this English language today, Jesus the Christ, the Anointed. Okay, so where is Yah in that? As I said before, YHWH, which is what Jesus means. Okay, if one looks the name up and look at the etymology of the word, you will see the breakdown of the word. It's just another way to say YHWH. Okay, as I said before, the name YHWH came about in Numbers chapter 13. That's where we see Moses named Oshua, the son of Nun, YHWH. It's not going to be spelled right. They're going to spell it JEHOSHUA there. Okay, as I said before, 2 books over, it's spelled JOSHUA. Okay, and the name of Yahushua is spelled about 4 or 5 different ways in the Book of Remembrance. That's how deceitful these people, descendants of Esau, were who translated the book coming up through time. So again, the name itself means Yah is my help, my salvation, my deliverer. So that's idolatry enough right there. You're not dealing with Yah of hosts at all. You're dealing with something totally made up, a mythological story. As I said earlier, anybody else wants a profound, in-depth look at this New Testament, you can go to our website, YahRighteousnessChicago.net, and on the site itself, you can look up the JC myth, the Jesus myth. I do 4 hours on it, in depth, pointing out all of these things that salient points to totally discredit and reveal the New Testament for what it really is, a lie, a total made-up story. As I've said to everybody in the past, if you go to the book of Yeshaya, Isaiah, chapter 42, chapter 49, and chapter 53, it's no way at all that those 3 places that the publishers of these Bibles say are talking about this main idol of the New Testament in those 3 chapters, is if you really understand the word of Yah, and even if you understand this New Testament to the degree that it's purported, okay, that this person called Jesus, or if you want to call him by the Hebraic term, Yahushua, okay, everybody knew who he was, what he was, That's why, according to the story, the three wise men or the three kings came with gifts from faraway countries at the day of his birth. But if you read chapter 42, Yeshaya, Isaiah, chapter 49, Yeshaya, Isaiah, chapter 53, Yeshaya, Isaiah, they all talk about somebody, again, this seed of David, who wouldn't know who he was. He's a root out of dry ground, as all Israelites basically are. Okay, roots out of dry ground. Now, since 1896, you've had Israelites being raised as Israelites, okay, still taught wrong because they were taught about Christianity. Simple as that, like the William Crowdy movement and many other movements that have come about since 1896, okay, when we started to awaken to the fact we were Israel. But again, the New Testament is totally idolatry. Like I said, it's no way that if one reads Yeshaya, Isaiah 42nd chapter, 49th chapter, and 53rd chapter, it could be talking about this so-called entity called Jesus. Because, again, it's supposed to be a root out of dry ground. Specifically, if you look at chapter 49, for instance, that's the seed of David talking at the top of that chapter. He didn't know who he was, who his people were. And he didn't find this out until he became an adult. That's why it says, I spent my strength for naught and in vain, yet surely my judgment, my work is with Yah, my strong one. Okay? In chapter 42, Yeshaya, Isaiah, it specifically says, who is deaf as my messenger, blind as my servant. You follow what I'm saying? And
all right, time is up. Messenger of Truth, 4-minute rebuttal.
I got 4 minutes, remember. Okay, so the question was, asking to validate his accusation of the New Testament being total idolatry with some examples of actual idolatry. That's what I asked. I didn't hear anything about the worship of idols, nothing. Well, I heard basically about he don't like the title of New Testament. Well, the reality is that is a man-made word. No one said that's part of the text. Just like Tanakh. Tanakh itself is a man-made word. Teachings, Nevi'im, which is the prophets, and Ketuvim, which is the writings. That's how we get Tanakh. That's made up by Israel. It's the same thing. So if you got an issue with one, you should have an issue with the other. I heard he's just talking about his belief of what he thinks the Hebrew names are. He mentioned a mythological story. Then he said the idol of the New Testament. He didn't give any examples of actual idolatry. Idolatry would be the worship of something that is not God, that is not the one true living God. But when I look at the texts, because the script, the question was based on the text. Can you show how the New Testament is total idolatry? When I look at the two texts, in the Old Testament, I see Abraham fell before three and called them his Lord. None of them corrected him. Does that make him an idolater? When I look at people like Hagar and Jacob at Jacob's ladder and Samson's parents, how they treated this angel of the Lord as if it was God himself and worthy of worship, does that make them idol worshipers? No, it doesn't. But it's funny to me how somebody can have the gall to say that the New Testament is idol worship. But it's very clear that Israel worshiped carved images of metal, wood, and stone. I've never heard of the New Testament showing Christians worshiping graven images, when it is Israel who lit candles on hills to gods and idols. I never heard of the New Testament or Christians doing that. When it is Israel who killed their own children as sacrifices to Baal. I never heard the New Testament or Christians killing our children to some dead, unliving, mythological god. Abraham himself was of a house of idol manufacturing. I don't recall Jesus being born into a house like that in the New Testament. Rachel, Jacob's wife, held on to the idols of her father's house. I never heard of Miriam or Mary Magdalene or Mary or even Priscilla doing that in the New Testament. King Solomon in the Old Testament erected all kinds of pagan abominations in the holy city. In fact, that the very foundational reason why God split Israel into two nations to begin with. I've never heard of Paul doing that in the New Testament. In fact, Paul and Barnabas did the exact opposite of Solomon, and they were nearly killed because of their opposition against idols and soothsayer riches in the New Testament. But in the Old Testament, the wisest king, the wisest man ever is erecting idols all over Israel. The worship of Baal existed in Gideon's hometown. I've never heard about that in Peter's hometown in the New Testament. The worship of Baal was even in the household of King Saul. I've never heard about that in the house of Bartholomew in the New Testament. Ahab, the husband of Jezebel, he built a temple to Baal. Folklore, however, shows that James of the New Testament was thrown off the temple to his death. Not that he built an idol pagan temple. So it's I mean, on and on and on and on. So should I say that the Old Testament is total idolatry? Because when it comes to sin and idolatry and incest,
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Radio.
All right, family, time is up. Once again, this is Fact Check Volume 7, Defend Your Words. Special guest is Messenger of Truth and YHWHudah Ben Israel. The number is 319-527-6239. Now, let's continue this. Let's go back to Messenger of Truth, who has 1 minute to ask a question. Go ahead, Messenger of Truth.
all right, second question. In the Psalms that says, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand. You asserted that the psalmist is suggesting that King David is the one who's going to be at the right hand of God. I find your words a little disconcerting, as well as hypocritical, because you said that the New Testament is total idolatry. So given these two facts, I would like to know how you can accuse the New Testament of total idolatry, but by the words of your own mouth, you make a mere mortal, King David, to be God's equal. The question is, why do you falsely accuse the New Testament of being total idolatry, but by the admissions of your own mouth, you literally speak and promote blasphemy that this is David at the right hand of God?
Again, okay. Again, that 110th Psalm, the writer of it, the first Lord is all cap. That's where Yah was. The second Lord is lowercase. It's just in reference to David. Just like Abihail called David my Lord, as others did, because he was the governor appointed by Yah over Israel. He was anointed by Yah. So, I mean, that's self-explanatory if one goes and really reads it. Again, in Zechariah chapter 4, it's talking about the two anointed that sits on each side of the Most High. David's seed sits on the right hand of Yah. The high priest seed, the seed of Zadok, sits on the left side of Yah. Again, those are the two anointed that Yah has anointed forever, those two lines. And the governor that's coming to Jerusalem, the high priest that will be designated in Jerusalem, they will, again, those are the two governors that sit in direct union with Yah, that Yah works through to reveal his mind and to conduct the state, the governor's seat, and the temple and temple grounds through the high priest seat. Those are the two anointed. Again, Zechariah chapter 4. Because David is referred to as Lord, we're dealing with an English transliteration. And again, it's like I said, we see Abihail referred to him as such in this English transliteration. He wasn't referred to as the Most High. Everybody understood he was the anointed of Yah. He was the governor. He was the captain of the people. So, again, when you keep saying about this New Testament and, the whole thing is idolatrous from the get-go. Because, again, people want to claim that they're not worshiping this idol image of Yeshua or Jesus, should I say, again, that's another way to pronounce it, but that's exactly what they're doing, because they're dealing with this idolatry, this idolatry that comes from the New Testament. I mean, if you're dealing with the New Testament and the New Testament is idolatry, then that ideology is tainted and idolatrous in its inception, because it's not about Yah, it's not the word of Yah of hosts. Again, I hear you say all of it being idolatrous, but it all is, from Matthew through Revelations. If one looks at the first chapter of Matthew, like I said before, this is not even the seed of David. Okay? Joseph never had intercourse with this person called Mary, according to the story. That's in the first chapter. And even if he did, they've got this Joseph coming out of the seed of Konya. And if you go to Jeremiah chapter 22, you'll see there that Yah said no seed of Konya would prosper on the throne of David again. Simple as that. So the whole story blows up either way you go. If you go down to the bottom of chapter 1, Matthew, and it says all this was done to fulfill the prophecy of the prophet, saying, behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son and call his name Emmanuel, they're predicating that on Yeshaya Isaiah chapter 7, which, again, that was a sign to Ahaz, the birth of Emmanuel, and Emmanuel was Yeshaya Isaiah's second son. It lets you know that in chapter 8 of the book of Isaiah, when Isaiah says, I and the children whom Yah has given me are for signs and wonders in Zion. So, again, the whole thing is idolatrous. Simple as that.
All right, you got a messenger.
Okay, so the question was, why do you falsely accuse the New Testament of being total idolatry, but by the admission of your own mouth, you literally speak and promote blasphemy by making King David God's equal? Let's examine a couple of facts. Fact number one, God created hellfire because Lucifer said he wanted to be like God. He never said, I want to overthrow God or kick him off his throne or fight him. He says, I want to be like God. To put anything at equal terms of God is worthy of hellfire. He takes it so personal, he literally created hellfire for that very reason. Fact number two, if the scribe intended that passage to mean what you are wrongly claiming it means, that scribe would have been put to death. David himself would have had that scribe killed for blasphemy. In fact, David might have killed the scribe with his own sword. Fact number three, none of the real Israelites disagreed with Jesus, and I mean not a single one of them. None of them ever responded or wrote a source saying that Jesus was wrong about King David talking about his own descendant. Nobody said, no, Jesus, it was a scribe who was talking about David. Why? The reason why it is not anywhere in Israel's history is because to say that this is David sitting at the right hand of God would be to promote blasphemy. It would be to promote blasphemy. Fact number four, more than once the Jews reacted to kill Jesus and desired to kill him because he made himself what? Equal to God. They understood that when you make yourself equal to God or anything that's equal to God that is not God, that is considered blasphemy. We see this even when Stephen was talking to Israel, giving them a history lesson from Abraham to Moses. And everybody was okay, right up to the point when Stephen's eyes were open, his spiritual eyes were open, and he says that he saw Jesus standing at the right hand of power. As soon as Stephen said that, the Jews shouted blasphemy, and they stoned him to death. Even at the trial of Jesus before the Sanhedrin, they asked him two questions. Are you the Messiah? Are you God the Son? They asked him two questions. As usual, Jesus didn't answer about being the Messiah. He always hid his messianic nature from the Jews. But he did answer as far as his divinity. He said, yes, and you will see me coming in the clouds at the right hand of power. And what happened? The high priest violated the law of Moses by tearing his robe, and they all screamed blasphemy. They said, we don't need witnesses because we've heard it for ourselves. He is making himself equal to God. So by you saying that this is David being at the right hand of God, you are making David God's equal. That is blasphemy, and it is a blasphemy. It is a sin worthy not only of physical death, but it is a sin worthy of hellfire. Ready for the next question, Sal?
All right, before we go to the next question, once again, I see a lot more people calling into the show. Once again, the number is 319-527-6239. Remember, if you guys want to ask questions later on, you can. Just simply press number 1, and we'll go down in order to take some of your questions. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. Then you got to press number 1, and that lets me know you have a question or a comment for our special guest. Let's get into the next question. Messenger of Truth, go ahead.
All right, switching gears, you said that Israel is the light bearer. What did you mean by that, and how do you validate that Israel is some sort of light bearer? I'll ask the question again. You said that Israel is the light bearer. What do you mean by that, and how do you validate that Israel is the light bearer?
Well, again, that's Amos 3, verse 7. Yah reveals his mind through Israel, just like he said in Deuteronomy chapter 18. Just like in regards to this 110th Psalm, Yah is saying to David, sit at my right hand. That's what the writer is writing, until I make thine enemies thy footstool. Because Yah worked through David and the mighty men of Israel to cleanse the land of Canaan and to subdue the land of Canaan and all those nations in and around the land of Canaan. That's what it meant. That's what it's saying when you say, sit at my right hand till I make thine enemies thy footstool. I mean, that's self-explanatory. So, again, that's not being blasphemous to Yah at all. That Yah works through people. Again, in Amos 3:7, he said he reveals his mind through his servants. And that's the children of Israel. That's Deuteronomy 18th chapter. Okay? As we see in the book of Jeremiah, he has raised up many prophets, sending them to the children of Israel, as he sent them to other people, as we see in the book of Remembrance, the so-called Old Testament, Genesis through Malachi. Yah only revealed his mind once through somebody who wasn't per se an Israelite once Israel was established. We know that our progenitors, he revealed his mind to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob, who, again, Jacob's name was changed to Yisrael, right? But it was only Balaam, the son of Beor, a Midianite, that he revealed his mind through, okay? And that was only because Balak, the king of Moab, who sent his men to Balaam, the son of Beor, who was a prophet, a seer at the time. And that's only because Balaam had to be in harmony with the law of Yah because he was a Midianite. See, again, when you talk about this New Testament and these Jews, the Jews then were Edomites. That's not talking about Israelites. That's the Edomites. Again, when you go to Galatians chapter 1, 9th through the 13th verse, you see Paul, from what I understand, he says there that he was a Jew in the Jews' religion. Well, that's Judaism. That wasn't even called Judaism at that time. It was called Hasidism. Mentioned that the last time I was on. Okay, Hasidism came on the scene 300 BC down to 175 BCE. Those are Edomites. That's not Israel. Simple as that. All through from Matthew to Revelations, you're reading about Edomites who are called Jews, okay? And again, any Israelite calling themselves a Jew is confused because Israelites are not Jews. A lot of them think they are, but they're not. That term comes from the abbreviated term YHWHudah, which spawned off into Judah, okay? Again, as I said the last time I was here, it's no tribe ever been in the nation of Israel called Judah. Okay? The name was YHWHudah. Simple as that. But the illuminated Edomite didn't want anybody to know the name of the Creator, so they got rid of YHWHudah and replaced it with this YHWHudah, which evolved into Judah. And the J didn't come on the scene again until the 17th century CE AD. Was no J sound prior to that. You got the floor.
I got.
Okay, so the question was to validate Israel as a light bearer. Okay, moving on. Fact number one, Israel never did what they were supposed to do. Israel itself needs a savior, as prophets clearly and repeatedly show. Israel has never been able to save herself, so how in the world can a nation possibly save others? If you can't swim, how in the world are you going to save someone else from drowning when you're drowning yourself? That's fact number one. Fact number two, Isaiah is very clear that Israel is likened unto a tree that was hewn down. In other words, it was cut down and left as a stump. But out of that stump grows a reed, a branch, and that branch is what grew and grew into a new tree that covers the earth. This is about the Messiah, which grows out of the nation that clearly failed in its task. Isaiah is making it painfully clear. The Messiah and the Messiah only is the light of the world. Fact number three, it's been almost 6,000 years from Adam to us. The first 2,000 years, Israel didn't even exist. How can Israel be a light to the nations when it doesn't even exist? For the second 2,000 years, all I see in Scripture is rebellion, God threatening to wipe them out, more rebellion, more sin, more ways to disobey God, more threats to be wiped out, on and on and on it goes. How is that an example or a light or a salvation to the nations? And for the third 2,000 years, Jews have been scattered. So the first 2,000 years didn't exist. Second 2,000 years, pure sin and rebellion. Third 2,000 years, they've been scattered. So at what point exactly has the nation of Israel ever been a light or example or salvation to the nations of the earth? Never. This is not about Israel. It's about the Messiah. How do I know? Because fact number four, it's the prophecies of the new covenant is not unto Israel only. You cannot take Jeremiah 31 in the absence of Isaiah 49. I've already heard you mention it tonight, where he says, I spent my strength in vain, and I failed to basically regather and restore Israel. God says, don't worry about it. It's too easy for me to just restore and regather Israel only. Instead, you're going to be my salvation unto the ends of the earth. So the prophecy is unto the Gentiles. So ask a Gentile, since they are the object also of the prophecy. I can guarantee you, you go down from one side of the planet to the other and just ask Gentiles, who is their light? Who is their salvation? Who is their example? None of them, I would pretty much say, none of them are going to say, Israel is my example. And they're certainly not going to say some New Age cult who thinks they're Israelites is. Almost every single Gentile on this planet, whether they're true or false, they're going to say that some Jesus or some variation of Jesus is their light or their salvation or their example. Even the false cults will say that. So ask a Gentile, since the prophecy is unto the Gentiles. Israel has never been a light bearer. And Amos does not say that, by the way. He says that he reveals his secrets to the prophets. Nor was it an Israelite, nor was Job, nor was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God can reveal whatsoever he wants to whomsoever he wants. Ready for the next question, Sal?
All right, family. Once again, the number is 319-527-6239. This is Fact Check Volume 7. Defend your words. I see we got people pressing number 1. Like I said, later on, we're going to get your questions. So if you press number 1, don't press it again. Stand by. We're going to get to you guys later on. But let's get into the next question. Go ahead, Messenger.
All right, question number 5. You spoke several things out of the book of Daniel. I want to focus on some things you claim out of his writing. The first thing I'd like for you to explain is, what did you mean by Daniel talking about the 4 kingdoms of man? I'm focusing on your use of the word man. Why are you calling it of man instead of Babylon?
Because you're never going to see the 4 kingdoms of the Gentiles anywhere from Genesis through Malachi. And you're not going to see that in the book of Daniel. You're only going to see that in the New Testament. And the reason why the illuminated Edomites wrote the New Testament and speak of the four kingdoms of the Gentiles because they want to obscure themselves because they're not Gentiles. They're Edomites. They're Hebrews, but they're Hebrew Edomites. Simple as that. Like I said, the whole New Testament, that's what it's talking about. It's not talking about Israel at all. So I can understand why you don't see, and didn't understand where I was coming from in your last answer, okay, in regards to the New Testament. New Testament is written by the illuminated Edomite, and it's talking about Edomites. And that's who you read about historically. From the 2nd century coming down, 2nd century BC, into the 3rd century BCE. Matter of fact, all the way into the 4th century BCE. Those are Edomites, okay, that's talked about. I mean, definitely up into 135 CE AD, that's when the Edomites got kicked out of the land. And as far as the usage of the term kingdoms of man, that's what it is. When we look at history and historical data, all four kingdoms were the kingdoms of man. I noticed somebody put up on the internet about I didn't say anything about the fourth kingdom because that's the Roman kingdom. That's totally incorrect. If one goes into history, you'll see the fourth kingdom has consisted of many different people at its head, and sometimes simultaneously, similar to today. Okay, you've got Russia, China, and the United States, the three great powers in the world today. Okay, and that Lucifer you mentioned in Yeshua chapter 14, that's the illuminated Edomite that controls Jerusalem today and this daughter Babylon, the United States of America, pretty much Britain too, and Germany and France. Again, basically as we see here, that's the house of Rothschild. And history basically underscores that. So again, the four kingdoms of man, again, the first three were named. Babylon started with Nebuchadnezzar. You've got the Medes and the Persians, started with Cyrus the Great. And then you've got the Greek kingdom, started with Alexander. The fourth kingdom was diverse from the previous three. And so if you look at history, Rome was defeated in 455, 476 by the Franks, who were Germans. And Otto I was coronated in 476 CE AD. They Germans. It became the Holy Roman Empire in the 11th century CE AD. But it was Germans per se at the head of it, and the illuminated Edomite was on the rise because they created the church. I've talked about that in the past. That's on our website. Simple as that. You see the church increasingly getting more power coming up through this fourth kingdom because that was Esau's invention. Again, that was spoken of in Daniel chapter 11, verse 37, 38, 39, 40. You see the advent of Islam, the king of the south, the king of the north in Daniel chapter 11, 37, 38, 39, and 40, that's Christianity, and that's your crusades. History bears that out. So again, when you talk about, what you see, I don't expect you to see it, but hopefully, and I'm sure it's going to be some out there in the public who will discern this, and they'll come to light on understanding, because history substantiates the word of Yah as Yah. Again, this word is history. Simple as that.
Yeah, Messenger.
All right. So, again, the question was, why are you calling it the four kingdoms of man instead of Babylon? Babylon is a nation who not only rules the world, it rules over Israel. The four kingdoms that Daniel mentions are not only superpowers, they're also ruled over Israel. Egypt doesn't count because the Jews were not in their land. It didn't rule over Israel. Germany, Russia, Spain, France, England, America, they don't count either because none of them rule over Israel. So again, these four kingdoms represent what is of Babylon. But then another kingdom comes, which is like unto a giant rock carved without human hands. And this is the Messianic kingdom that falls on the final fourth of the Babylonian kingdoms. This is the feet of iron and clay. At that point, Babylon is totally and permanently destroyed. This is about the reign of the Messiah, which then leads to eternity. The book of Revelation echoes this because it clearly shows that Babylon is fallen. And then the very next chapter, Jesus returns. So Babylon must fall and be totally wiped out from the planet before the Messiah reigns. Both apocalyptic books, Daniel and Revelation, make it very clear that right before the reign of the Messiah, the system of Babylon will be destroyed. In Daniel, it's the feet of iron mixed with clay that is smashed by the mountainous rock. And in Revelation, we read, Babylon is fallen. And right after that, we see the event of the Messiah returning. So both Daniel and Revelation agree on what must happen right before the Messiah reigns. The system of Babylon must be destroyed. That's why I was asking you to explain why you were demoting God's intention and removing the purpose of his word by saying that this is a system of man instead of showing this is about the destruction of Babylon. Ready for the next question, Sal?
All right, let's get right into it. Go ahead.
Okay. Number 6. Echoing my previous question, because I'm dealing with a few things out of Daniel, you mentioned that the feet of iron mixed with clay, and you just went into it. The iron mixed with clay represent how Israel is to have no part of the Roman system. You said something like that, how Israel is to have no part of the Roman system concerning the feet of iron and clay. I would like for you to explain why you inserted Israel into that when Israel has nothing to do with the iron mixed with clay.
Again, I never said anything about the Roman system. That's your mind, okay? You got that New Testament in you. But nevertheless, the clay is Israel, okay? And just like Israel could not mix with the gold or the silver or the brass, it can't mix with the iron. That should be apparent to anybody that's really studied history to this very day in regards to Israel, so-called Negroes, blacks, African Americans, take your pick, colored people. We can never mix. We're never going to be on an equitous basis ever, because we weren't driven to the four corners of the earth to be on an equitous basis. We were driven to the four corners of the earth to be whipped because of the sins and the iniquity of our forefathers. Anybody who really reads this book of remembrance, Genesis through Malachi, will see that. And again, Yah has done that, as he said in chapter 34, Exodus. It was a terrible thing he was going to do with the children of Israel, because through Israel, Yah is magnifying himself as I speak. Again, it was to be at the end of the four kingdoms of man, as Yah states in Daniel chapter 2, when he would start to set up his kingdom. In the days of these kings, when they would mingle seed, as it says, and they're mingling seed across the board. Now is the time, as Yah has established his movement, Yah righteousness. He's working through his movement. That's why we're doing this session, Yah righteousness, here this evening on the Sabbath day. As we do, we magnify Yah of hosts to who and whomever that this goes out to. And again, people need to actually come and read this book of remembrance, Genesis through Malachi, because, hearing things that come from these idolaters that's in this New Testament is nothing but confusion, and it's not historically based, okay? Again, like I said, this is not the Roman kingdom. It's the fourth kingdom. Rome has been out of existence for a few, about 1,600 years now. Like I just said, not quite 1,600, 1,500 and something years. Rome fell in 455, 476, defeated by the Franks. So, and the Franks are Germans. So this talk about Rome is just a lack of understanding of historical data. Anybody that's talking about Rome in regards to today just doesn't understand history. Simple as that.
All right, you're the rebuttal messenger. Go ahead.
All right. Point number one. To say that the iron and clay, the feet of iron and clay is about Israel, is effectively suggesting that Israel is part of Babylon. That image is one image. That entire image represents the Babylonian system. And that's why I said these four kingdoms make up Babylon. The last, it's five limbs, but there's only four kingdoms. It's not the limbs that's important. It's the metal that's important. Just like the beasts that Daniel was talking about, the Babylon, Medo-Persians, Greece, Rome. It's the same thing for this image of the metallic man. So iron is mentioned twice, but the second time iron is mentioned, it's talking about the feet of iron and clay. This is not Israel. To say that Israel is part of this is to suggest that Israel is part of Babylon. Point number two, Babylon is two. Again, Babylon is two. It is politics and religion. In other words, it is state and religiosity. It is a nation and a belief system. This is why we see things like Babylon and Baal. This is why we see iron mixed with clay. This is why we see the harlot on a beast. And the cherry on the top is this is why we see Antichrist and false prophet. Over and over and over we see politics mixed with religion. Why? Because Babylon is two. This has nothing to do with Israel mixing with Gentiles or Israel mixing with Rome. It has everything to do with Rome once being a nation only. Because at one point it was just Rome. This is the legs of iron. But after Constantine and his invention of what we now call Catholicism, Rome is now both church and state. Once it was just a state, legs of iron. Now Rome is both church and state, feet of iron and clay. Iron is mentioned twice. It's the same kingdom. The Vatican is the only thing on this planet that is both church and state. So I'll say it again. Rome was once a nation. That's the legs of iron. But iron is mentioned twice. Rome is now both church and state. The Vatican, this is the feet of mixed with iron and clay. Daniel calls it iron mixed with clay. Revelation represents it as a harlot on a beast. The two are one unit because, as I mentioned, Babylon is two. It is religion and nation. Now, females represent religion in prophetic terms. Israel being the wife of God, church being the bride of Christ, Baal being the queen of heaven, Jezebel, etc., etc. But this woman is a whore. She's an unfaithful wife. She is a false church. And Daniel makes it very clear that the beasts that he mentioned, these represent nations. So the harlot on a beast is a false church, which is also a nation. That is the Vatican. And every clue in Revelation points to the Vatican, from the 666 to her resting on 7 mountains to her being drunk with the blood of the saints. This has nothing to do with Israel. Israel is not part of the Babylonian system. Ready for the next question, Sal?
All right, let's get into it. Once again, the number is 319-527-6239. I see a lot of people enjoying the show on social media. You can email me at debatetalkview@gmail.com. But let's get right into it. Go ahead and mention the next question.
All right. Staying in the realm of the book of Daniel, you told people that, and you said it tonight, you mentioned that out of Daniel, and I'm pretty certain you were talking about Daniel 12, verse 7, that is a representation of 2,500 years. Can you validate your time frame and support the passage that you think this is alluding to 2,500 years?
Again, I don't know what book you're reading, but in the book that I've got, Genesis through Malachi, in the book of Daniel, Daniel's talking about kingdoms. That's what the kingdom, the image of Nebuchadnezzar represented. The 4 kingdoms of man. Doesn't say anything about nations. So I don't know what's in your book or which one you got, but it's not in this King James Authorized Version that way. Okay? The children of Israel represent the clay. Clay cannot mix with iron, and that's stated in Daniel chapter 2. Again, all of these ideologies of man, and definitely all of these religions. And if one actually looks up the word religion, you'll see the etymology of the word comes from the Greek word religio, which means to bind oneself fast to a belief. And beliefs are accepted. They're like superstitions, you know. And like Stevie Wonder said, you believe in something that you don't understand and you'll suffer. And that's what Israel's been doing through the four kingdoms of man to this day, suffering, as many people are suffering at this very day. All of those idolaters you mentioned, that's in Christianity or in Islam or in any other religion, okay, they're suffering. And that's across the earth. That's why we see so many uprisings and protests across this earth in all these different nations. As it says in Daniel chapter 2, once the stone cut out without hands, which is representative of the seed of David that Yah said he would raise up, the anointed of Yah to work through, which is talked about in that 42nd, 49th, and 53rd chapter, Yeshaya, Isaiah, and some other places as well. Yah would work through him to bring forth his illumination to the world, his light, to direct everybody on the earth to Yah's laws, statutes, ordinances, judgments, commandments, and precepts. Again, all ideologies, all inventions, from that head of gold all the way through those feet and toes, part iron, part clay, are going out with that kingdom, you know, the kingdoms of man, that image. Again, nothing that was conceived of ideology-wise, invention, can go off, from that head of gold through those feet and toes, part iron, part clay, can transition over into that stone. Once that stone hits, it starts to grow into that mountain that eventually is going to fill up the earth. That's when the whole earth will be the kingdom of Yah. But none of those ideologies, religions, inventions that were conceived of from the head of gold all the way through the feet and toes, part iron, part clay, can transition over into that mountain. Simple as that. That's why another reason why Christianity's got to go out, together with Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, Hasidism. All of that's got to go out. Scientology, all of that was conceived of from the head of gold all the way through the feet and toes, part iron, part clay. All of those religions are going with the image. Simple as that.
All right, go ahead, Messenger.
All right. Okay, the request was, can you validate your time frame and support the passage that you think is alluding to 2,500 years? I don't think any of the questions have been answered, but at this point, this wasn't answered. It wasn't even touched, not even remotely. So here's where we are. Before I even touch Daniel 12, verse 7, I'm going to go back to Daniel 7. In Daniel 7, it's talking about the Antichrist. Daniel 7 starting at 25. Daniel 7 starting at 25. In that passage, it's talking about the Antichrist, and it goes on to say, his hand unto time and times and the dividing of time. See, time, times, and the dividing of time. The wording in Daniel 7 is the same as the wording basically in Daniel 12. Therefore, we must conclude that because the gentleman said in his hot seat that Daniel 12 is about a 2,500 year, that must mean that this tyrant mentioned in Daniel 7 is going to live literally for 2,500 years. Neither Adam, Abraham, Noah, Seth, Job, or anyone of the righteous lived that long. But now all of a sudden, the most wicked man to ever walk the face of the earth is going to live for 2,500 years. Let's skip to Daniel 9, verse 27. Part of that reads, it's also dealing with the reign of the Antichrist. It reads, 1 week and in the midst of the week, etc., etc., etc. 1 week and in the middle of the week. Daniel 9, like Daniel 7, is talking about the son of perdition, the lawless one, who we call the Antichrist. Daniel teaches us about the 70 weeks in which 1 week is a period of 7 years. So when Daniel talks about how the Antichrist will betray Israel in the midst of the week, meaning the middle of the week, I know the Aramaic word for midst is in reference to the middle of the week. And since 1 week is a period of 7 years, what is the midpoint of 7 years? Half of 7 is obviously 3.5 years. So let's skip to the passage that he was talking about, Daniel 12, starting at verse 7. Part of it reads, and it shall be for time, times, and a half. That's the same thing that Daniel 7 is saying, is when it says time and times and the dividing of time. Daniel 12 is saying the same thing and talking about the same period of time that Daniel 7 and Daniel 9 has already expressed. Daniel is talking about the last days, and in this case, the rule of the son of perdition, who is the Antichrist. Daniel is talking about 3.5 years in this passage, not 2,500 years. Let's fast forward to the New Testament, which you love so much, Revelation 12, verses 14, and it reads, still talking about the reign of the Antichrist, and it reads, and to the woman were given two, meaning Israel, and to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she will be nourished for a time and times and half a time. Time, that's singular. Times, that's plural. Half a time, that's 1 plus 2 plus 0.5. That's 3.5 years. Revelation is saying the exact same thing that Daniel is saying in those other 3 passages. They are all talking about the time of Jacob's trouble, which Jesus called the Great Tribulation. They are all talking about the reign of the Antichrist. So really, since we know this is half of the time, what the gentleman is really saying is that it's not a 3.5 year period, it's 2,500 years. So really the total time is 7 years. Jacob's trouble, the Great Tribulation, the reign of the Antichrist lasts for 7 years. But what he's saying is that a total time will be 5,000 years. This has got to be the worst butchering of God's word concerning this unified passage.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Radio.
All right, time is up. We got more for you guys. We got more Q&A. Once again, Defending Your Words, Fact Check Volume 7. The number is 319-527-6239. I see we got a few people pressing number 1. Like I said, be patient. We're going to get to you guys. But we got more show for you guys. So stand by. Hopefully you're taking down some notes. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to call in 319-527-6239. They got to press number 1, and that lets me know you have a question. But let's continue this. Let's go once again to Messenger of Truth. Go ahead.
All right, question number 8. Still within what you mentioned out of the book of Daniel, and you mentioned it tonight. You said that the kings of the north and the kings of the south is a battle between Christianity and Islam. You stated it, but you didn't exactly validate it. As I see it, Daniel 11 talks much about these 2 entities, the king of the north, king of the south. I'd like to extend you the opportunity for you to validate what you claim concerning one being Christianity and the other being Islam.
Again, if you go to 11:36 to 12:10 Daniel, again, that's dealing with the Crusades when you get to verse 38, 39, 39, 40, 41, 42. That's dealing with the Crusades. The Christian Crusades, when Christianity attacked Islam after Islam had barred the Christians from coming into Jerusalem in the latter part of the 10th century CE/AD. All one has to do is get them a good history book and read about the Crusades, and you'll be able to see that because it was quite a few Crusades over a period of a few hundred years. Again, when you bring up Daniel chapter 7, that's not talking about Daniel chapter 12. The Daniel chapter 7, the little horn that popped up on the head of the 4th beast that already had 10 horns, each representative of a king on its head, when it came into view and Daniel saw it, that little horn is Augustus Caesar, Octavian, because it's all one has to do is go to history. You'll see under him times changed. That's when they started the BCE and the AD or CE Common Era under Octavian. He's the one that changed time when he elevated himself to the stature of divinity and made himself a god. That was year 1 AD, Anno Domini, the year of the Lord. Their Lord was Augustus Caesar. The time and the dividing of time is from the time that he became sole ruler, the first king emperor of Rome. And that was in 31 BCE after the Battle of Actium. If you add 2,000 years to that, it'll bring you to 1969. And as of 1969 AD/CE, we've been in the dividing of time. You can divide something up any way you want, okay? And again, evidently, you don't understand it, and I understand that because you're all in the New Testament. But nevertheless, it's progressive. Again, it's not talking about somebody living over 2,000 plus years. It started with Octavian, Augustus Caesar, and it's carried on the affliction, wearing out the saints of the Most High, which is Israel, through this fourth kingdom of man, as we are seeing. But again, this is basically implemented and initiated and promulgated continually by Yah through the descendants of Esau, the sword that Yah has brought on the inhabitants of the earth. That's talked about in Jeremiah chapter 25. It was also, again, talked about Esau would live by his sword in Genesis chapter 27 when he got the dominion. The illuminated Edomites rose to the dominion in this fourth kingdom. Okay, they didn't get it in a day. It took them a while. They've had it now for about a little over 100 years, sole dominion, but they've been powerful for a few hundred years. Like I said, they created the Christian church and Islam too, to be the antithesis to the thesis of Christianity, to bring about the desired result, the synthesis. And this is, again, the illuminated Edomite got this from Yah from studying his word when they got a hold of the Book of Remembrance back there around 330 BCE. Because they're the Lucifer, this illuminated Edomite, House of Rothschild, is the Lucifer that's talked about in Isaiah chapter 14, because they're illuminated. But that's why Yah said he would take all the wisdom and understanding out of the mount of Esau. We see that in the one chapter, Obadiah, in these last days. And we also see it at the back end of chapter 51, Yeshaya, when Yah takes the cup of drunkenness out of the descendants of Jerusalem that return to Yah with all their heart and soul and get in harmony with these laws, statutes, orders, judgments, commandments, and precepts. He takes that cup of drunkenness and puts it into the hand of the illuminated ones, those who have said to us, lay your body as the ground that we may walk over, and we laid our body as the ground. They are holding the cup of drunkenness now. They can't make a right decision now. So I don't expect you to see that because, again, you all in the New Testament, you can't see. But, again, this is for all those who's out there who are really reading and studying can see. And hopefully those who haven't been able to see, who's snared in the New Testament.
All right, time is up. Messenger, rebuttal.
Okay. The extension was, I'd like to extend you the opportunity for you to validate why you claim, or what you claim concerning one being Christianity and the other being Islam. It's 8 questions straight. I don't seem to be getting a straight answer to any of these things. Fact number 1, Christianity isn't anywhere in any apocalyptic writing. It's not in Daniel, it's not in Revelation, it's not in the apocalyptic teachings of Jesus or Jeremiah. The reality is Daniel 11 is perhaps the most precise passage of Scripture in the entire Bible. It's so exact and accurate and undeniable, only unbelieving scholars seem to suggest that it's pseudo-prophecy. In other words, they believe because it's so precise and so exact, it was written after the events occurred. Frankly, I cannot fathom how a man who boasts to have as much study since the year I was born can literally mess this up as badly as the gentleman has been doing, saying this is about Christianity and Islam. Fact number 2, Daniel 11 is about the fall of the Persian and the Grecian empires. I can somewhat, only to a point, I can somewhat understand how one can identify Persia with Islam, but that does not lend itself to be an automatic identification of Islam. Similarly, I can understand how someone can identify Rome with Catholicism, but like Persia, that does not lend itself as an automatic identification of Catholicism, which he calls Christianity. So let me give you the history of Daniel 11, one of the most precise prophecies in the entire Bible. Verse number 2, the three kings are Cambyses, Suidos, Samerdis, and Darius. Verse 3 and 4, the mighty king that the passage is talking about, whose kingdom is divided into four winds, is Alexander the Great, who is represented as the leopard with the four heads in other places of the book of Daniel. Alexander the Great didn't have any children, so when he died, the kingdom of Greece was divided to his four generals. Verses number 5, the king of the south is Ptolemy I, Sultan of Egypt. He was stripped by one of his princes, Seleucus Nicator. He became the ruler of Babylon, Media, and Syria. And this is where the arch rivalry of the Ptolemies and the Seleucids began. That's in verse 5. In verse number 6, the king of the south in this verse is Ptolemy II, Philadelphus. He formed an alliance with the king of the north, who is Antiochus II, Theos. Ptolemy gave his daughter Bernice as wife to Antiochus to seal the alliance. In verses 7 and 8, Bernice's brother, Ptolemy III, Eugetes, took an army and he stormed Antioch, where he disposed of several leaders, including Seleucus, and took some of them, their precious things from their temples, back to Egypt. In verse number 10, the sons of Seleucus tried to take vengeance against Bernice's brother for killing their father. Verses 11 through 12, the king of the south, this is now Ptolemy IV, Philopator of Egypt. He counterattacked the king of the north, who was still Antiochus III. Both had very large armies, but the winner was the Ptolemies. In arrogance of the win, Ptolemy IV slaughtered tens of thousands of Seleucid troops. This is perhaps why he didn't keep control over the Seleucid kingdoms. In verses 13 through 15 years later, the king of the north is still Antiochus III, would have an even bigger army, and he attacked the Ptolemies in Phoenicia and Israel. And he
All right, time is up. Once again, it's Fact Check Volume 7. Defend your words. Again, the number to call in, 319-527-6239. Again, we got a lot more show for you guys. Let's get into the next question. Go ahead, Messenger.
Yeah, I generally don't backtrack, but the point I was making previously, that Christianity and Islam did not even exist yet, neither one of them. Question number 9. The gentleman said in the hot seat that no one lives forever. I think that's what he said, something like that. And that eternal life is God talking about our genealogy, meaning our seed, our descendants. So what I'm asking him tonight is, can you show ancient Israel ever showing that they believe that eternal life was through the offspring? And if you cannot show Israel believing that eternal life was through the offspring, why are you teaching people something that neither Israel nor the church ever believed?
Again, David talks about his seed, okay, and you can see that in 2 Samuel chapter 23. See it in 1 Kings chapter 2. We can see it in regards to Saul. The last thing he said to David, he asked David not to wipe out his seed, exterminate his seed. And David swore he would not, because that's how you live on through the. No one person lives forever. Yah said he's the first and the last, like he does in the 43rd chapter of Yeshaya and other places. He's the first and the last. If any one person lives forever, then he's a liar. He's not the last. Seeds live on. Human beings die. That's why, again, you go to Genesis chapter 15, and we see Abraham. He died at 175. Yah told him he would multiply his seed like the stars of heaven. Abraham's got a lot of seed here today, but he's not here and he's not coming back. Again, all of this one person living forever themselves is totally and utterly ridiculous. This is what the Egyptians believed. That's where Israel got turned out in Egypt, Ezekiel chapter 23. This is what the illuminated Edomite found out that we were susceptible to. That's why when they came up with this New Testament, they made sure they put that in there for Israel specifically, and many other people are caught up in that nonsense too. But nobody comes back. And anybody who wants to actually, read that, again, you go to the book of Ecclesiastes. That's what Solomon, the wisest man ever, is talking about. Nobody comes back. Nobody lives forever, because he's talking about death basically throughout the book of Ecclesiastes. And as far as Daniel chapter 11, 1 through verse 20, 21, I didn't ever say that was talking about Christianity and Islam. I said 1136 Daniel through 12:10. That's in there. That's where it's talking about the clash of Islam and Christianity. And basically that picks up at around verse 40, 41, 42, 43. That's where you see the clash of Christianity and Islam. And as I said earlier, history so substantiates that. Simple as that. So, one who's void of historical knowledge, then it's going to be hard for them to actually be able to see this in the Book of Remembrance when they read it, this so-called Old Testament, in these different places. Just like I said about Augustus Caesar, Octavian. If you do some research, you'll see that time changed under him. He also commissioned Virgil to write the Aeneid, which was a code of laws that he wanted for the Roman people, as he said, like the Hebrew Testament. Okay, so again, people who read the New Testament and think it's talking about Israel, like I said earlier, is totally misled. That's talking about the Jews, the Edomites. That's not talking about Israel at all.
All right, go ahead, Messenger.
All right, so the question was showing ancient Israel ever showing that they believed eternal life was through the offspring. I didn't ask for your private interpretation of what you believe. I asked for you to show that Israel, as a nation, believed that eternal life was through the offspring. And I said, if you cannot show ancient Israel showing it, why are you teaching people things that neither Israel nor the church ever taught or ever believed? So here's my response. God made man in his image and his likeness. God has characteristics that mankind also have because we are made in his image and his likeness. He's jealous, I get jealous. He shows love, I show love. He cares for his children, I care for his children. Made in his image and his likeness. God is also eternal. Therefore, the souls of men are immortal. They do not die. That is the eternality of man, the spirit of man. And there are holy people who have lived and they never had any kids, like the senior citizen couple in the temple who served the Lord. They were called righteous, but they had no children. So does that mean that the righteous couple who had no eternal life because they have no seed of their own, just going to live and then die and then disappear into oblivion? What about what David said about his dead baby boy? He was weeping over his son when he was sick. But when his son died, David started to celebrate, saying, I'm going to go to him. How can David go to his son, who is now dead in the flesh, if that child was not immortal, meaning the soul of that child was not immortal? When God introduced himself to Moses, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He didn't say, I was the God of these now dead men who were dead for centuries. He says, I am. And this is God speaking in the present tense as if they were still alive, because they are still alive, even though their bodies had already turned to dust. And this is the teaching that Jesus taught Israel. He said, when God introduced himself to Israel, he says, I am the God of thy father, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He didn't say I was. Jesus said he is the God of the living, not the dead. This very second, people like Adam, Abel, Noah, Abraham, Job, Moses, Elijah, Malachi, Peter, Paul, and every saint that's ever lived on this planet who are dead, they are more alive this very second than they've ever been in life. Same thing for the wicked. Neither Israel nor the church ever taught or believed that eternal life is through the offspring. Nobody's ever believed that. Entire civilizations can be wiped out in war. Entire civilizations can be wiped out in war. So, and many righteous people have died without kids. In fact, Abraham and Job, the two men in the Old Testament who were called righteous, they almost died without children. And that's a fact. So, anyway, eternal life has nothing to do with offspring. All flesh will one day perish. All flesh will one day perish. That's a private interpretation.
All right, let's jump into the next question. Again, Fact Check Volume 7, Defend Your Words, Messenger of Truth versus YHWHudah ben Israel. I know you guys enjoying the show. I'm seeing the responses on social media, and there's a lot of people standing by on the phone lines waiting to ask their questions or comment in the program. But let's get into it. Messenger, next one.
Yeah, I'm looking at the time, Sal, and as you and I talked, I did say I was going to try to keep it at an hour and a half. And plus, I said that in the three-way call, so we're not going to be on all night. So I'm going to wrap it up there at the ninth question. I mean, he did say things like the 2 days out of Hosea. He mentioned the illuminated Edomites. He said that a few times tonight as well. He said Esau and his propaganda. He talked about the Edomites in the land today. And even tonight he also said Jeconiah and the genealogy of Jesus. So I'm not going to go into those things. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here as far as the questioning so we can end it at the hour and a half point.
All right, not a problem, man. All right, well, let's go to the people real quick. And we got people standing by, so long-winded questions, family. All right, but let's go to the family out there. Let's see what they got to say about this. Let's go to 719-216. You're live.
Hello?
719, you're on air.
Hello?
719. Yes.
Hello?
I can hear you. Can you hear us? Me? Yes, you're loud and clear. You're on air. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just want to say I listened that everything went on. And what the messenger of truth is talking, I was in that for years. And by him being in what he's in and so embedded in that, he's not going to see nothing else different. I wouldn't have saw nothing else different if I hadn't stayed in that. But it was something missing through all that. This is a comment I'm making. He said something about the soul is immortal. You cannot find the words immortal soul written in the book nowhere. That's the ideology of Christianity. It's no such, show me immortal soul in the Bible, the two words together. They're not there. And then a lot of stuff. He was saying the whole image Daniel saw was the Babylon. He does not know what he's talking about because he don't know history. All those Christians basically that follow that teaching that he's talking don't know what they're talking about. If you go and read stuff written by Carl Hendricks, if you go and read the historyworld.net.com, they will tell you about the writings of the New Testament and how the fallacies there that the brother was bringing out, the fallacies there, none of that is true. And he quoted a lot of stuff, the messenger of truth, but he's blind as a bat with shades on. And the brother that's on the air being in the hot seat, he's wasting his time. He's beating a dead horse. That's what he's doing. But, hey, that's what the call for. It's a lot of things he was saying. If you break those images down over there in Daniel, the image, it ain't no one kingdom. It ain't no one image, the Babylonian. The brother and the messenger of truth just don't know what he's talking about. Matter of fact, without Daniel's breakdown, we probably wouldn't know where we're at now in time. And all this stuff that he was saying about in Revelation and you see that live on, and but all that's incorrect and all that. He does not know the book of remembrance, which people call the Old Testament. He do not know it. That's why he's saying what he's saying, because he have no idea of what Scripture teach. No one live forever in no shape or form. Once you die, that's it. The dead know nothing. Ecclesiastes 9:5. That's it. When Hezekiah was saying over there in the 38th chapter of Isaiah, he said, I will not see God anymore, nor man. Read it. This is the 38th chapter of Isaiah. So this is about you're going to live forever and all that foolishness. Last thing I want to say. It's a whole lot because y'all talked a long time. But I'm going to say this and I'm through. If you read Deuteronomy 32, verse 39, Yah said, I live forever. That has never been given to no man. No man. But he's a good brother. He's from Chicago. I'm from Alabama. And I hear all what the message of truth stand, but he's messed up. I was in that same mess that he's talking. But I came out of it about 15 years ago. All this stuff like Rome, this, and political, and this thing and that thing. All the stuff that he was saying, because I've been listening to y'all a long time. And I just want to say, I've been there in what the message of truth is saying, and he's not going to listen to the other brother. He ain't going to listen to that, because he's too far in the depths of Christianity, and he's blind. Thank you.
All right, let's get some responses from Messenger of Truth. Let's go to Messenger. Go ahead, you can respond.
Yeah, I'll respond lightly. It's. I mean, what do I say to that? It's all. I don't know this, and I don't know that. I mean, Sal, this. On one hand, it's like we've had personal conversation. You know, I don't share a lot of stuff with the platform. I don't share a lot of things about me, my accomplishments, my education. You know, I don't do that live. But then when you have people like these two gentlemen who, instead of just refuting what is stated, instead of just pitching their position and hoping their position will override mine, they default to, he don't know history, he don't know this, he don't know that. That's laughable. If I start talking about my credentials and my accomplishments, they're going to sound like foolish men because they're just making up stuff on the fly. Just deal with your information. Forget about me and what you clearly don't know about me. Just deal with your information. I haven't heard you refute anything. You make claims. You make claims, but you don't validate it. I was trying to give allowance for what was claimed to be validated. I even stated it in the 3-word call. This is what you said, this is what you said, this is what you said, this is what you said. I did that. I never shared that with anyone on the 3-way call. I even put it in writing, and I gave it to Sal so it can be provided. These are the things I'm going to address. I've never done that before. The person should be 100% prepared for everything because I provided a list. So to say that I'm wrong because I don't know history, that is not an argument. That's a child's response. And then he said the mortal soul is nowhere in the Bible. So, okay, if you think that when everyone dies they go to oblivion, well, that's your problem, not mine. There were sects of Judaism that did not believe in the resurrection. Tiny sects. The vast majority of ancient Israel up to this very day know that there's going to come a judgment of the souls. There's going to be a resurrection of the dead for that judgment. If you think that all of that is going to go away, then there's a lot of scriptures you're going to have to get rid of out of the Bible. He says, because of what I'm into. I've never even had a conversation with these people to tell them what I'm into. And it's saying because I'm in the New Testament, but I'm not even talking about the New Testament. I'm not even asking questions about the New Testament. You don't even know where my position is in the New Testament because you've never had a conversation with me in your life. So, and then when he said the dead know nothing, well, obviously. This is the thing with people who don't believe in the biblical narrative and the Word of God. When the Old Testament talks about the dead know nothing, that is obvious. Why? Because they can't see what's going on. They don't know who the leader of their country is. They don't even know who their descendants are because they don't see it. All this secular stuff about, like Kobe Bryant, he died, he's going to heaven, he's looking down. There's nothing about them looking down. So what does that make? Put heaven in the clouds or something? And they can look down and see us? There's nothing that says that anyone can see us. So the dead whose souls go to either paradise or Hades, they cannot see what's going on in the world. Therefore, the dead know nothing. They don't know if their relatives are crying. They don't know if their enemies are happy at their funeral. They don't know anything because they can't see it. And as time passes, they don't even know if they even have any more descendants, whether they all died out or if they got their son is a king or emperor now. They know nothing. They don't know. That's what the scripture is saying. It's not saying that the soul dies. What the scripture does say out of Ecclesiastes is that the dust returns to the ground that it came from, and the spirit returns to the God who gave it. And this is what even David said. He said, you will not suffer my soul to stay in Hades. He said that. And when David talked about his son, which I mentioned tonight, his dead son, he basically said he will go to his son, and he was saying that as a celebration, not as something that he's going to oblivion and he's going to stop to exist. I said it. We are made in the image and the likeness of God. People spend too much time trying to make God into a human being. You don't even understand what that means. God is eternal, and so the souls, spirits of men are eternal. They don't die. The flesh dies, but the soul lives on forever.
All right. Once again, the number is 319-527-6239. Of course, we had to let YHWHudah in Israel respond, and after that, we got some more callers standing by. And by the way, we have like 23 minutes on the air, y'all. We have 23 minutes on the air. So let's go to YHWHudah.
Again, the brothers got a lot of things convoluted. I answered these things that he asked. I guess they were so quick, and I directed the people to historical data. You have to have a grasp of history to understand this book of remembrance, which is Scripture. The New Testament is the gospel writings. I said that the last time I was on. That's not Scripture, okay? And in regard to David saying that he would not see Sheol or death, he said Yah would not allow him to see corruption. In other words, he knew he was Yah's anointed, okay? He had already saw that Yah was protecting him when he killed the lion and the bear. Simple as that. Before he killed Goliath, okay? Because when he killed Goliath, again, now he's Yah's Holy One because he's been anointed. He killed the bear and the lion. He wasn't anointed when he killed them. So once he killed Goliath, again, possibly a little time after that, he knew Yah was with him because he was with Yah in obedience to his laws, statutes, ordinance, judgments, commandments, and precepts. When you get in harmony with Yah, now Yah becomes your strength and your shield. Okay? And that's why David wrote the 16th Psalm, that Yah would not allow his Holy One, his anointed, to see corruption, to die. Because, again, as it says in the 110th Psalm, Yah, the writer of that 110th Psalm, is expressing it, again, that Yah was like with David because David was with Yah. Simple as that. And, again, Israel was supposed to be able, as we are doing, awakening, like it says in Isaiah chapter 44, like it says in Hosea chapter 6 at the top of the chapter, like it says in Daniel chapter 12. Again, many Israelites, as many other people, are walking on the face of this earth today, and they don't understand much of anything. And the reason why is because they're in idolatry, just like this brother, this messenger of truth. Okay, now he can stand up for idolatry and try to make it not be, but it is what it is. And we see that these Christians and Muslims, Islamists, as I said earlier, Hindus, Buddhists, Zoroastrianism, whatever the idolatry religion they're in, they are lost. Most people who walk this earth today don't know who's really at the head of it on the human level. Okay, they don't you've got some more now knowing about the illuminated ones and the Illuminati, but you still have masses of people, billions, who don't know anything about the Illuminati and who's actually controlling this earth insofar as on the human side. But as I said earlier, Yah is setting up his kingdom, Daniel chapter 2. Okay? Yah, as I said earlier, is taking the cup of trembling out of the hand of Israel if they so seek Yah out. Israelites who have not sought Yah out, they still got the cup of trembling in their hand. They still are walking dead. Okay, but that's what it's talking about in Hosea 6 and Daniel chapter 2 at the top. It's not talking about people who are literally dead in the grave. It's talking about people walking around. They got a heart made fat, can't understand. They got eyes open but can't see. They got ears made heavy where they can't hear, which is talked about in Isaiah chapter 6, which I mentioned last time I was on the show. The only way that they can actually get relieved from those three things to where they can really start seeing, hearing, and understanding, and that's if they turn to Yah of hosts with all their heart, whether they're Israel or not. And I said that earlier. Simple as that. People got a chance now, okay? But as Yah says in chapter 55, Yeshaya, come unto him while he can be found. Okay, that window's not going to be open forever. And it's been open now for 120 years. Okay? Matter of fact, 123 this year. And again, in regards to, I answered the questions. He said I didn't, but maybe I answered them so brief, again, because people have to know, they have to know history. And if they don't know history, they're not going to understand anyway. They're just going to be thinking, feeling, believing, and accepting. I said that last time I was on the show. Okay? And that day is over with. Yah can be found now. Things can be substantiated and confirmed, just like I said about Daniel chapter 7. Okay? That's talking about the little horn is Augustus Caesar, Octavian. And that can be substantiated. He made him God. That's when they changed time. 1 AD, 2, 3, 4. Now we at 2020. All this can be substantiated. But one has to take the time out themselves and actually apply themselves, okay? As long as you listen to people like this messenger of truth, you're never going to understand it. Because, again, he's convoluted. I guess he doesn't know it.
All right. We got more people standing by. What I'm going to do, y'all, I mean, I know everybody got a lot to say, but I'm going to time the answers as well. I'm going to give y'all like 4 minutes to respond to some of these callers, because, you know, we had a time limit. So like 17 minutes on the air right now. We have 17 minutes on the air. However, we might go into the overtime part of the show. So if you're listening on social media, that means you're going to have to call in to hear the rest of the show. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. Right now, we're taking some of your calls. But again, I'm pretty sure we're going to go into the overtime part of the show. So if you're listening on social media, the only way you can hear the rest of the show live is by calling in 319-527-6239. I'm going to start timing the answers, the response to you guys, the listening audience out there. So let's go to the next person. Let's go to 530. You're live. 530.
Yo, greetings. This is B.A. Ben Abraham out of Sacramento, California. Can I be heard?
Yeah, you're loud and clear.
All right. Messenger of truth. My brother, I appreciate your patience. I know it can be very irritating to deal. When you ask questions and not to get an answer at all. I know that can be very difficult and irritating, and I appreciate your patience. To Brother Yehudah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Measure?
Not yet. I don't think anybody's anything.
I'm listening.
Okay. Now I was just saying I appreciate your patience, man. I know it can be irritating. And to Yehudah, I just want to ask you. I mean, according to the Book of Daniel, this is just me personally. Well, not personally. This is what I've heard over the years. When it comes to anyone that claims to keep the Torah 100% or they claim to be Torah observant, I've always heard something when it comes to the Book of Daniel that I've never heard before. one thing about the Jews, and according to their oral traditions, they say, curse to those who read the book of Daniel. So, and then when I hear Hebrew Israelites who claim to just keep Torah and they reject the New Testament when it comes to the book of Daniel, I hear things that's added and taken away to try to fit their belief or their ideology or theology or whatever you prefer to call it. But my question to you, can you come on Debate Talk for You and give us a thorough teaching of the book of Daniel according to the four kingdoms and the beast and prove that your answers tonight are valid based on the scriptures and historical sources to confirm it?
When you want to do it?
Well, you can set that up behind the scenes. That's no problem. We'll set that up behind the scenes.
Okay. I do, like I said, and nothing personal with you, brother. It's just that I just want to hear, because a lot of things you said I disagree with. But if you can most definitely bring out some sources and prove, like especially that timeline about it's talking about 100. I guess the window of opportunity is 123 years. Please, can you please?
Oh, I didn't say that though, brother. I didn't say the window of opportunity is 123. What I said was we're 123 years into the window of opportunity. It's not that much time left. What I said. What I said was, if you go to Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 55, Yah says there, come unto me while I can be found, which automatically lets us know it's not going to last forever, this window of opportunity. It's already been open now for 123 years, since 1896. We're in the 124th year now.
You know, that's fine, man. So my point is that all that you just spoke on, man, I would love to hear you bring that out with some scripture and some historical sources and a timeline to actually confirm that. That's all I'm asking.
Well, I've done that too. Again, I touched on it the last two sessions, but I know when you're listening to all of this, it's kind of like when you read the book of Job, or read the book, period, the book of remembrance. Because the book of remembrance, you get the wisdom and understanding of it from Yah, and he gives it to you over a period of time. Okay? I've been reading since 1973. I really started reading in 1974. I'm still learning, bro. I'm still learning to this very day. I talked about it on the session that's going to play later on today, 11 o'clock Eastern time on Pal Talk, Our Righteousness Movement. Okay? We uploaded it Wednesday. It's going to play in the morning at 11 o'clock EST. Again, if you go to YHWHudah.net, our website, everything we've done is on that site. You can go through it, peruse it. But, again, if Sal wants to do, another session and have me break down Daniel, I can do that too, brother. That's between Sal. That's up to you and Sal. I can do that too. No problem.
Yeah. I appreciate that, because I'm interested to hear your the way you break things down. I'm interested to hear that, because I most definitely would like to listen and critique it and ask some questions about it once I hear a more thorough. Once you get a chance to actually dig into it a little thoroughly. But thanks to you guys.
It's a lack of historical data, as I said earlier. The reason why people can't understand this book of remembrance. See, just like this messenger of truth. Like I said, he's convoluted. He probably might not even, evidently he doesn't understand it himself. I'm not saying he's being adversarial just to be adversarial. He's just caught in this New Testament, okay? Because like I said earlier, the New Testament, read it, and it talks about the Jews. That's the Edomites. It's not talking about Israel at all.
All right. So once again, we have 11 minutes on the air. We're going to go into the overtime part of the show. I'm pretty sure of that. So you're going to have to call in to hear the rest of the show, family. 319-527-6239. If you're already on the phone lines, you're good to stand by. But if you're listening on social media, if you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, to call in so you can hear the rest of the show. We have 10 minutes left on the air now. But let's go to Messenger for his brief response, and after that, we're going to the next person. Go ahead.
Yeah, BA, nice hearing from you. I would encourage you to do what any learned person would do. You cross-reference your material. So you're asking him to express his beliefs. I would say some things to look out for is, what did Israel believe? If you can't find it in Israel's history, that somebody's saying that this is what it means, that's what it means. If you can't find it, you have to step back and ask yourself, why is it now 2020 and I'm hearing this from somebody who got it from this book and that book in the 19th century, whatever, but it doesn't exist in ancient Israel and it doesn't exist with the church. You have to step back and ask yourself, where is this coming from? Because the prophecies do talk about new winds and fables that will be rising up everywhere. The rider on the white horse, Jesus warned, do see that you are not deceived, because religious deception will be everywhere in the last days. Now, I am and have been a prophecy buff since 1991. I can go through Daniel right now. I don't even need to prepare for it. Same thing with Revelation. And the stuff about, he doesn't understand because he's in the New Testament, that is, as I said, that is a child's response. It is childish to simply dismiss something about someone you don't know. And this is why when we did the three-way call, I giggled. Sal was my witness. I giggled and I said, you're not even asking me anything about me. You don't know my educational level. You don't know my background. You don't know anything about me. So tonight, all I'm hearing is a whole bunch of assumptions. No, I disagree with you because I am learned. I disagree with you because I have decades experience as a prophecy buff. I disagree with you because I am educated. I disagree with you because I can read and have read and studied for myself. So yes, I can go through Daniel as well. And I can start, that's exactly what I did tonight, even showing how Daniel 7, Daniel 9, and Daniel 12, even Revelation 14, the only two apocalyptic books in this entire Bible, they're talking about the same thing, a 3.5 year period, which is half of the 7 years of Jacob's trouble, not 2,500 years, which is half of 5,000 years. From Adam to us, it's been about 6,000 years. You're telling me it's going to be another 5,000 years of Jacob's trouble? I don't think so. No human being is going to live that long either. So, yes, I mean, I would say, if you're going to start getting information from people, I would say you need to make sure you get it from other persons who know as well, or at the very least, have enough knowledge yourself to be able to cross-reference the material to confirm or even refute it. Be careful of what you ask for, is what I'm saying. Hand it back to you, Sal.
All right, family. Once again, this is Fact Check Volume 7, Defend Your Words, Messenger of Truth versus YHWHudah ben Yisrael. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. As mentioned earlier, the show is on Apple iTunes in the podcast section. It's type in Debate Talk for You. It's absolutely free. Never miss another episode. Of course, on Blog Talk Radio. And you can check us out on YouTube for those that are new to the program. Let's go to the next caller, though. 504, you're live.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're loud and clear. How you doing?
Yes, hey, how you doing? This is Benaiah Ben Israel out in New Orleans, Louisiana. Let me just say this for all the listeners out there. If you're going to talk to Brother YHWHudah, make sure you did your homework. Okay, I'm just telling you what I know. Now, I hear Messenger of Truth, the young brother, and he keeps talking about validation and his credentials. Listen, man, it doesn't matter what educational background a person has, because basically you got your information from other people. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have. If you haven't read that book of remembrance, if you haven't humbled yourself to the creator of heaven and earth, Yah of hosts, and if you're not living a life of obedience to his laws, I don't care how many degrees you have, PhDs, master degrees, you are not going to understand what Yah is doing in this earth. And if you're in that New Testament, you're lost. Now, I could say that. You know why? I was brought up in the New Testament. I know the New Testament like the back of my hand. I was brought up a Catholic. I've been studying this book for a long, long time. And when I first spoke to YHWHudah several years ago, I realized one thing. I got to get back in this book and brush up, because this brother will talk over your head. I keep hearing people saying, the last brother that called said that he know how frustrating it is when you're not getting your questions answered. Let me tell you something. Every question the Messenger of Truth asked YHWHudah was answered. It was answered loud and clear. I heard it. So if you didn't hear it, it's because, you didn't do your homework. You're not up to speed. You can't learn addition, you just mastered addition and subtraction, and you're going to walk into a calculus class? That's not going to work. You have to be brushed up on your arithmetic. You have to have a foundation. And I don't mean to sound disparaging, but it's just the truth. How do I know? Because I was where this young brother was, or where he is at one time. Oh, I thought I knew it all. I did the research. I'm well, you know. I felt I was well versed, but I was caught up in that New Testament until I got rid of it some 30 years ago. And now I can see a lot clearer. So validation, I don't know what kind of validation he's looking for. The bottom line is YHWH is on the scene at this point. And if you want to hear his voice, you have to obey his voice. I didn't hear the young brother validate YHWH at all. I didn't hear him give praises to the Most High. I didn't hear him glorify or magnify the name of the Most High. I hear him talking, and he went to that New Testament a lot. As long as you're doing that, you ain't going to get it, brother. I mean, I say that in love, and I'll say that to anybody because I've been there. I'm not telling you what somebody told me. I've been there. You know, it's one thing when you played the game. You know, I played that game in Christianity before, so I know it. And that's how I know it's a bunch of nonsense, and I yield the floor.
All right. I appreciate your call. We got more callers standing by, but of course, we got to let the special guest respond. Messenger, you can respond.
Yeah, it's just an echo chamber. I'm hearing the same thing from different, apparently elderly men, perhaps men who are friends and peers one to another. Again, what do I expect birds of a feather to do? One bird to say, okay, I don't have feathers, I'm going to go over here and chill with the lizards. When I pick up a rock and there's a whole bunch of cockroaches, I don't expect an insect to stop being an insect. Birds of a feather will flock together. I've never heard these gentlemen before in my life, but all of a sudden I'm hearing new voices, somewhat strained, which is suggesting that they're beyond the years of maybe 58, and they're all saying the same thing. They're just making accusations. Neither one of them have refuted anything. Neither one of them. And this stuff about, I think some people are caught up in this craziness of, I'm an old man and I put in this time and blah, 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 blah. Well, the very book of Job refutes that foolishness. Because Job and his 3 old friends, when they were going back and forth, we wouldn't even know anything about young Elihu. And this is why I don't snap or crack on young guys, or I should say young guys younger than me. Because Elihu set those 3 old men straight the same way I will set you straight right now. It has nothing to do with age, but it is the spirit of God that he imprints upon the man. That's where wisdom, knowledge, and understanding comes from. So he says, I learned from other people. Again, never had a conversation with this guy in my life. He's assuming. And then he says that if I'm not living a life of obedience, again, he's assuming. And then he says, if you're not read, that shouldn't even come out of his mouth. If he knew anything about me, he wouldn't even think to ask me if I've read the Old or the New Testament. I have a Bible less than 6 feet from my face right now. I can guarantee you if I put it in his hands and asked him to find me a passage, he wouldn't even be able to find book, chapter, or verse because it's not in English. Go figure. So they say all these things, but it's like you're not disproving anything. He says the man that answered every single question. So, example, when I asked him about the 2,500 years, he didn't even touch it. How is that answering the question when he doesn't even touch it? When I asked him to validate his accusation about the New Testament being total idolatry with examples of actual idolatry and he doesn't even touch it, how is it he answering the question? When I talk about the Psalms and how no one in Israel ever went against Jesus saying that, no, this isn't David talking about his descendant. This is a scribe talking about David. That doesn't exist in the Talmud. It doesn't exist in the Midrashi. It doesn't exist in the Zohar, the Ramban. It doesn't exist anywhere. But it's clearly talking about David's descendant, not David himself. And all of Israel would agree that the fact that you're saying that David is at the right hand of God, which is to say he's at and on his throne, that would be blasphemy. This wouldn't even be in the Bible. How did he answer that? He didn't, because this would be blasphemy. The scribe would have been put to death. David himself would have put the scribe to death. And I even gave examples like the death of Stephen, Jesus' crucifixion, what's written in Revelation. All these things as far as being at the right hand of God is to be God's equal. And is a mortal man God's equal? Yes, there is one. Because as the Tanakh says, arise, O sword, against the man that is my fellow. If you people are so learned, if you've been studying as long as I've been living, then how come you don't understand that the Hebrew word for fellow suggests something that is an equal against the man who is my equal? And yet God creates hellfire because someone wanted to be like God? You guys talk about you study, but I'm not even hearing the basics. This is not youth. I might sound young, but I'm not some little new convert or some kid fresh out of college or just finished a master's degree 2 years ago. I am beyond that. I am beyond those things. I'm not some 20-year-old kid that just got started into all of this. All of you, all three of you peers have called in, and you've all basically echoed the same thing. You don't know because you're in the New Testament. I'm not even talking about the New Testament. That's just a child's response, and you've all said it. The funny thing is, two of you have said it even when I said that's a child's response. That's an unlearned argument. If you disagree, refute it. What I've done is I refuted the answers. They have not been answered. They were just danced all over the place, and then I showed exactly what the passage is talking about. Nothing was refuted. If you want to prove me wrong, you need to refute and disprove what I say. Don't jump all over the place.
Yeah, I apologize, Messenger of Truth. Time limit 5 minutes for now. A lot of people got to respond and things of that nature. I'll also give 5 minutes to YHWHudah. Again, we're officially in the overtime part of the show now. So, I appreciate everybody that called in. If you're on social media, I appreciate you for calling in to hear the rest of the show. We're going to get some more of your questions, and also we have final statements for you guys. So once again, if you didn't press number one, press number one. We're going to get a few more people before we wrap it up. And again, I appreciate you guys following the brand. But let's go to YHWHudah and get his response, and after that, we're going to go to the next person. Go ahead, 5 minutes, brother.
Again, the brother is referring to Zechariah chapter 13 about the fellow situation, okay? Again, verse 6 and 7, if you will, definitely verse 7. And that's talking about the last time we were on, the brother, I'm pretty sure he was out on the West Coast. He brought up about the chapter 12, Zechariah, and about the pierced. And as I told him, he asked me, who is that? And I said, that's talking about Yah, because Yah was the one that was wounded. He was the one that was wounded with an incurable wound, as he says in Jeremiah chapter 10, Jeremiah chapter 30. If one goes there, they can read that, okay? Because, again, if one knows the story, Genesis through Malachi, Israel repeatedly turned away from Yah. Because, again, as it says in Hosea chapter 11, verse 1, when Israel was a child, Yah brought his son out of Egypt. Okay, Israel as a nation was like a child when they came out of Egypt back in 1440 BCE. He marched them around in the wilderness for 40 years, then he brought them into the land of Canaan. And then over that period of a few centuries, Israel repeatedly turned away from Yah again, like they did in the wilderness. But Yah, as I said earlier in Exodus chapter 34, Yah said it's a terrible thing he's going to do with the children of Israel, because it's through Israel that Yah magnifies himself to the people of the earth. And that's what he's doing again now. And as far as the education of anyone, okay, I don't care how many degrees they've got. Again, that's not the prophecy in regards to Daniel chapter 2 and the stone cut out without hands. The sister mentioned that in the last time I was on. She said I didn't mention the stone. I told her. She said I skipped over it. I told her I hadn't gotten to it. But that's one of the attributes of the stone cut out without hands. You, as I say, you don't go to any educational facility, any theological seminary to learn the word of Yah. You go to Yah. And by his spirit, as it says in Yeshaya chapter 42, through reading, studying, praying, and doing, acclimating to the laws, statutes, ordinances, judges, commandments, and precepts of Yah. That's how he gives you the understanding of this word, Genesis through Malachi, this book of remembrance, this so-called Old Testament. Again, Zechariah chapter 12, when you go from 12, you're going into chapter 13. And that's what Yah is talking about. Okay, we're going to get attacked. The arm of Yah, once it's brought back and set in the midst of its sisters, Ezekiel 16th chapter. And it's going to be, all right, who's for Yah? Once Yah brings the Jerusalem movement back through the elite of the earth and set it in the midst of its sisters. Because it's the elite of the earth that's coming to get it. Daniel chapter 7, verse 13. To bring it to Yah. Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 60. The kings are coming to the brightness of the rising of Yah, okay? Because, again, they have to be humbled, okay? And it's going to be more than one this time, like it was when Amenophis II, when Yah brought Israel out of Egypt. This time it's going to be multiple kings, queens. You see that also in Isaiah, Yeshaya chapter 49. Okay, they're coming to get the movement of the Most High, to bring it to him in the sight of the world. That's Yeshaya chapter 52. And once we get back, right after we say to who and whomever is in Jerusalem and around Jerusalem, all right, who's for Yah? And they're going to have to make a decision. And once that decision is made, now we commence to removing all idolatry, which again is all Christian idols and images in Jerusalem, all Islamic idols and images in Jerusalem, whatever denomination, form, or fashion, all Judaism out of Jerusalem. And once we start this, you understand, again, the Dome of the Rock definitely has to come down because it's sitting where the first two temples of Yah sat. And once we start dismantling, we're going to get attacked. And that's what it's talking about in Zechariah chapter 12, chapter 13. The Assyrian, today they're called Iraq. They're going to attack us.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Radio.
All right. Time is up. We got to go to the audience once again, guys. I see a lot of people pressing number one, and I appreciate the people that's tuning into the program. Again, we appreciate you. We're going to hear from you guys, and after that, we're going to probably we're going to go to the final statements of the show. So let's go to the next person. Let's go to 614. You're live, 614.
Peace.
614.
This is
hey.
Peace. This is Yudita calling from Columbus, Ohio. I just had to call in and support YHWHudah. I know there are others that probably feel the same way I do listening to this. It was kind of frustrating. I've been listening to Yah Righteousness since 2011, and there's a plethora of information that you get from one video from Yah Righteousness. That all those videos on the website. But this messenger of truth, where is your information? Where is everything that you have, to contribute to serving the Most High? And if I have a question, if anyone has a question, we know where to go. We know the number to Yah Righteousness. We know the website. If people don't know that, it's out there. Where is your information? And what is your name? Why are you not using your real name? What is this messenger of truth? And if anybody wants to get a little insight into this messenger of truth, you can look at the comments underneath YHWHUDAH's first video or show that he did with Debate Talk for You. You know, that was some really disparaging things that you said to some of those people in the comment section. And there's no way, if people read that, they would want to come and learn anything from you. I mean, listening to this, YHWHUDAH is very humble. Anyone can tell. But listening to you, you are not humble at all. You're very arrogant. And like the brother Benaiah says, you did not uplift the Most High one time. Not once. And we definitely, as you know now, we don't care how many degrees you have at all. You know, why don't you go ahead, why don't you tell everybody what your background is? Why, don't let it be a secret. Just tell us all. What schools you went to, what degrees you have. Just let everybody know. But anyway, that's what I have to say.
I appreciate your call. All right, as usual, we go back to the special guest to respond. Messenger, you can respond.
Not really worth responding. What was that? Again, nothing was refuted. These are people who follow a man, and they're trying to defend their peer. They're trying to, defend their leader. The best way to defend your leader is by proving their words right. Not giving random stuff about people. Not asking for their name. I don't even know his name. That's kind of foolish saying that you don't know my name. Like, number one, I don't do the social media thing because I don't trust it. Seen enough horror stories. My name is none of your concern. You're not going to get it now. You're not going to get it 10 years from now. That is irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. She asked for my information. Same thing. Irrelevant. You don't need to know my education. You don't need to know the articles or journals. You don't need to know the books. You don't need to know my validated history of debates. You don't need to know how I even am the one who categorized the end-time prophecies into 4 categories. You don't need to know anything that I've done in the past 20-plus years. You don't. It's not your concern. Because someone has videos on a web page, that means nothing to me. Children do that. Children have YouTube pages. Children have websites. That means nothing. None of this was even a topic tonight. The only reason I said it is because the gentleman and his 2 peers, and now you, keep talking about me instead of just dealing with the points. If you feel that your leader is wrong, then defend his points. Disprove me how I've refuted his points. That's the only way, the absolutely only way anyone can ever come out on top. Saying you don't know because you're in the New Testament. You don't know because you're in the New Testament. That is not a defense. That is not an argument. And that certainly does not prove your point. All it does is prove to me that all you do is dismiss it. You simply dismiss what was stated, and then you're like, okay, well, we're just going to pretend that he didn't refute this man. And then you start talking about me instead of dealing with the points of topics. Sal is my witness. I have never given anyone points that I'm going to cover. I've been doing this before Blog Talk existed. I've never given anyone points so that they can be prepared. That was fair. That was fair. Here's the list. These are the things I'm going to talk. These are the points I'm going to ask about. Anybody that I've ever done anything with, this gentleman should have been the most prepared. The most prepared. Because he was given the list verbally, he was given a written list. Out of anyone in the past 20 years, whether it's debates or dialogues, he should have been the most prepared, more than anyone else in the past, because I provided a list. And you're saying I'm not being fair with the gentleman? I've been more fair with him than anybody else. No one else has got my notes or what I'm going to bring to the table. No one. And as far as me not hailing the Most High, well, who says I have to do that among you? Who told you that I have to do that? Even the scriptures say these people come to me with their mouths, but their hearts are far from me. What, you think that's a free pass into heaven just because you say, all praises to the Most High? That stuff doesn't even go past the bridge of your nose, let alone the feet of the one who sits on the throne. Your praises are I don't even like hearing your praises. They even sound fake and phony and hypocritical. So I already know they're offensive to him. I serve and obey and worship the Lord all the days of my life. I don't need to wait till I come on a show to start talking about all praises to the Most High. Even demons talk about the Most High. I know him personally as Father, always in my thoughts. I don't need to be playing hypocrisy just to be on the show. And y'all keep talking about the law and how you're not violating the Sabbath. Yes, you are. Because what is work? God said, do not work on the Sabbath. But he never explained what work is. So Israel had to decide what work was. And one thing that they had to do is say, okay, no work went into the temple or the tabernacle. What were the things that went on to build the tabernacle and the temple? One of the things was they don't write or erase characters. How did you call into the show? You typed characters into your phone or your computer. And you're telling me you're not violating the Sabbath? And you're such great law keepers? You're all talking to me like you're some sort of learned, elderly group. But even the basics you're messing up. Yes, you are violating the Sabbath right.
All right, once again, I apologize. Time is up. 5 minutes. We got to go to YHWHudah, and after that, we got to get some more callers. Again, we're going to get some more of you guys' responses, so stand by. We're going to go down the phone lines in order and take some of your questions. Let's go to YHWHudah. 5 minutes as well. That.
As I said earlier, evidently the brother's not acquainted with Yeshaya chapter 58. If he understood the 58th chapter of Yeshaya, as well as Leviticus 23, verse 3, nobody that's in their dwelling, wherever their dwelling is, and participating, listening to this, or if they're not, and they have gathered around that which is holy, and that's what it says in Leviticus 23:3, a holy convocation in all thy dwellings. The only thing that's holy on this earth today is the word of Yah, Genesis through Malachi, the book of remembrance, the so-called Old Testament. Again, King James Authorized Version is the one to be actually read. It's been attacked, but not quite like all of the others. And again, the reason why that's the one to be read is because it's the only one that fulfills 51:5 and 46:13 Yeshaya Isaiah. It's near everybody on the face of the earth. So again, we are gathered around that which is holy, which is the word of Yah, this book of remembrance, in our dwelling place. And again, we're drawing out our soul to the afflicted and to the hungry. We're not speaking vanity. We're only uplifting and magnifying Yah of hosts, the King, found of living water, spirit and creator of all things. So it's no way that we are violating the Sabbath day. As far as this character thing about pushing characters, that sounds like something that came out of the Talmud or maybe the New Testament. In any case, something that the illuminated Edomites wrote coming up through time. As I said earlier, or should I say in the first session, the Apocrypha as well as other books like Enoch, Jubilees, Jasher, Josephus' Antiquities, Esau wrote all of that. Simple as that. The Talmud, he wrote that, just like he created Judaism. It was Hasidism initially. Like I said, created in 300, from 300 to 175 BCE. 300 BC, 22 years after the 83rd Psalm. Ezekiel chapter 35, that's when the Edomites started to come into the land. In 587, 86 BCE, and started to claim the land of Israel as theirs. They're not Israel. One of the salient points that knocks them out is because they've been claiming to be Israel now for 2,200 years. That's not the prophecy. Anyone actually reads the prophecy about Israel, you could go specifically to Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 67. Israel was to be cut off. And again, to be cut off for a solid 2,000 years, 2 days, Hosea 6, and not be able to understand that they were Israel. That ended in 1896, 2,500 years after Daniel chapter 11, 36 to 12:10 Daniel. I said that earlier. That was the first vision Daniel got. That's why I said earlier, you add the 604 to 1896, 2,500 years. And that's what that's talking about in Daniel 12. Again, that Daniel chapter 7, that's dealing with Octavian, Augustus Caesar, from 31 BCE when he became total ruler of Rome, the first emperor, the first king, if you will, because his grand uncle got killed trying to become the first emperor or king of Rome, Julius Caesar. And Augustus became that, and eventually elevated himself to divinity, became a god. I got a book here called Augustus Caesar's World. All of that's chronicled in that book. They got a chapter. The last chapter is called Augustus Divus, Augustus the God. And as I said earlier, he commissioned Virgil to write the Aeneid because he wanted a book of moral code for the Romans, like the Hebrew Israelites had the Book of Remembrance, the so-called, which became the Old.
I apologize. Yehudah, time is up. We're going to take like 2 more callers. We're just going to take only 2 more, so I'm not going to get to everyone. And after that, I'm going to pretty much go to the final statement part of the show. Once again, I appreciate every single person that called in, that was listening on social media, and they're here right now in the overtime part of the show. We're going to only take 2 more callers, and after that, we're going to pretty much go to the final statements and wrap it up. Hopefully, the information that you guys gathered, you wrote it down, and when you get some time, of course, make sure you study the information. But let's go down to the next person. Let's go to 443. You're live.
Hey, Sal Showtime, and hey, brothers. It's an interesting conversation tonight. What I wanted to say, a couple things. This is Brother Mercy. One thing I wanted to say is that I feel that, while I already know, the New Testament doesn't have to be false just because a lot of people read it without considering the Old Testament. If you read the New Testament, keeping the Old Testament in line, in idea in your mind, you can properly understand the New Testament. Like the scripture that Mr. Truth used out of context was, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, he could have said, I'm the God of Moses, I'm the God of Noah, and I'm the God. Why did he say Abraham, Isaac, Jacob? It's obvious that he's showing you the offspring. And see, that goes back to the Old Testament. Again, the Old Testament is all about offspring. And even that story, the parable, is about offspring. The whole chapter or that whole conversation subject is about offspring, which is the Old Testament concept. Like, for example, the widow who had 7 husbands, that goes back to the Levirate law. She could remarry, but only the brother. That's Old Testament law. So we see here the Old Testament is in the New Testament. But if you totally ignore the Old Testament, like a lot of people do, they can't understand the New Testament. So that's why they go off in tangents and misunderstand it. Like I've heard Mr. Truth say tonight, he said the soul doesn't die. That's a blatant lie, because in Ezekiel it says the soul that sinneth must die. Again, that goes back, again, the Old Testament. So the widow has 7 husbands, and the reason why she has husbands is because she has no children. And what the Sadducees don't believe, they don't believe in resurrection, which points back to offspring, which is what the brother was saying. If you understand the Old Testament, Old Testament is saying the same thing. if you understand, if you keep the Old Testament in mind when you're reading New Testament. So I have one question for Yehuda. One question is, would you be inclined to keep the Old Testament in mind when you're reading the New Testament so you don't see the New Testament as falsehood? And then I would like to say the message is truth. Can you, brother, understand the verse in Ezekiel that said, the soul that sinneth shall die? And then do you understand the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Do you understand the correlation between them to understand that Isaac and Jacob are Abraham's offspring? And do you understand that that whole parable is about having children? So those are my two questions for the two brothers. All right.
All right, Yehuda, you can start.
Again, what you bring up, brother, about what the brother mentioned about the progenitor, he said Yah said he is the strong one of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Israel. The brother was like, because they were there with him. Yeah, he was talking to their seed, to their children, the seeds and the eggs of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay? Again, yeah, the spirit doesn't die. It returns to Yah who gave it. The wisest man ever talked about that, and ever would be talked about that in his book Ecclesiastes. Okay, what the brother brought up earlier, right? But it tells you in there, as I said earlier, Ecclesiastes is the wisest man, Solomon, the wisest man ever would be on the face of this earth. He wrote, that's what he's writing about, life and death in the book of Ecclesiastes, okay? And that's why at the back end of chapter 3, he makes the statement there, is anybody coming back again once they've died? No, they're not coming back again, okay? It's also in chapter 9, what the brother mentioned earlier, right? That's why it says a living dog is better than a dead lion. So you live on through the seeds and the eggs, specifically the seed, because we know the seeds as well as the eggs, the women too, right? But the seeds are, they go on. Those are the bloodlines. Is that not right? And that's why Yah said to Moshe, he said to the children of Israel, I'm the strong one of thy fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Israel. Because he's talking to their children, their descendants, just like today. Okay? This movement, we come in the name of Yah, our righteousness, the King, the Most High, and direct everybody to read this book, Genesis through Malachi, King James Authorized Version. But you can't just read it. You got to read it. You got to study it. You got to pray to Yah for wisdom and understanding, because that's where it comes from. That's the first 9 chapters of Proverbs. And you've got to do what you read. You got to put all 4 of those things together. Okay? That's the new covenant. 31:31 Jeremiah, Yeremiah. All right? When you read that, again, there's nothing new up under the sun. The new thing this time, though, is everybody got to read. See, before, as it says in Malachi chapter 2, in ancient times, the people sought the law at the mouth of the priest. This time, everybody's got the book, the word themselves in their hand. This so-called Old Testament, this book of remembrance, Malachi 3, 15th to the 18th verse. That's what it's called, the book of remembrance, okay, for those of us who have sought Yah out, okay, some shape, form, or fashion, because we're seeking peace or truth or righteousness or salvation from up under this demonic oppressive system that overspreads the earth, or we seeking the true and living Creator. Seeking any one of those things, you're going to get brought to this book of remembrance. Then you've got to apply yourself. Okay? As Yah says in Jeremiah chapter 17, the heart is desperately wicked. Who can know it? He tries the heart, the reins of the heart, to give everyone according to their desire, according to their ways. And that's what it's all about.
All right. Let's go to Messenger of Truth. Go ahead.
All right. So try to make this quick because we're already now over an hour. Past the point I was targeting for. If people want to fuss over the exact words of soul and spirit, well, that's okay. That's not my fuss. It a lot of times in scriptures it depends on the context. Soul, spirit. Either way, what lies within is immortal. It does not die. If you think that what lies within, whether you want to call it the spirit or call it the soul or call it both, that thing, the real you, does not die. Just like the baby, David's baby. Just like when Jesus said, suffer the little children and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of heaven. In other words, babies, newborns and aborted babies, they all by default go to heaven. Not their flesh, their soul, or if you prefer, their spirit. So arguing whether it's soul or spirit, it's not my argument. What lies within is immortal. If you don't think it's immortal, then you have to wipe out a whole bunch of scriptures. You have to ignore the fact that there's judgment. You have to ignore the fact that there's judgment for the righteous and the wicked. You would just have to say that men live, they die, and they poof, they just go away. You would also have to ignore, he said, Mercy said that I took the scripture out of context. I don't know how, when I was talking about the immortality of a person's soul, or if you prefer, spirit. That's why God announced himself, introduced himself to Moses in the present tense for men who were dead for centuries. Because as Jesus said, he is the God of the living. He's not the God of the dead. In other words, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were very much alive, but they were alive and are alive in the spiritual realm. Their flesh has already gone. So as far as eternal life being in the offspring, again, you just have to ignore everything I said. Entire families can be wiped out in any reason. War, natural disaster, disease, entire families can be wiped out. Entire cities can be wiped out. Earthquakes, like Pompeii. The whole place was blown up. So, and then there are righteous people who never even have any children. So what? They're just going to poof and just go into oblivion with no so-called eternal life? No. The eternal life that is promised unto the righteous is spiritual. It has never been physical. All this physical stuff one day will perish. It will all be gotten rid of. So does that mean all the righteous are going to disappear? No, absolutely not. The souls of men are immortal. I already know the scripture that says that soul must die. It depends on context what it's talking about concerning the soul, the spirit, or the spirit. You have to understand the context of the application of the word. So since that doesn't seem to be understood, I'll simply just say what lies within. When you want to argue if it's soul or spirit, that's not my fight. What lies within does not die. We're like angels. They do not die. They are immortal. They're not eternal because we don't have any eternity to the past, but we are immortal. We have eternity towards the future from the day we breathe our first. In fact, from the day that God puts it in us. Like I said, even newborn baby or children in the woman's womb, because God gives that creation a soul. If it dies in the womb, or if it's aborted, or even if it dies as an infant or an innocent, that child's soul goes to paradise. Suffer the little children and forbid them not, because heaven is full of the souls of little babies. That's what Jesus was talking about when he says, for such is the kingdom of heaven. It's full of the souls of innocent babies. The souls do not die.
All right, we're going to take one more caller, family. There's one more caller, and after that, we're going to get the closing statements from both my special guests. Once again, I just want to let you guys know I appreciate the special guests for coming on the platform, bringing your information, of course, as usual. And, of course, we're going to bring you guys back on. Let's go to 803. 803, you're live.
Hey, God bless. Peace to all. Let y'all be magnified. And my question goes to the messenger of truth. This individual says that he serves, the Creator, Yah. I'm assuming that's by name, that's his name. But he serves both Yah and he uplifts Christ or Yeshua. How can you have two masters? That's what I'm wondering to him. And you spoke of Amos chapter 3, verse 7 earlier tonight about Yah reveals his secret to his servants, the prophets. Then if you're in this New Testament, my question to you, you say you got your book right in front of you, then why don't you read Matthew chapter 2, verse 23, and tell us where that prophecy came to pass at.
All right, a couple of things I have to ignore. Number one, I didn't say anything about serving the master. Hang on. You asked your question. It's my turn to respond.
Go ahead.
I didn't say anything about I'm served Jesus and I serve Yahweh. I didn't say anything like that. That's something that you have inserted, so of course I have to ignore it because that's not even part of the show. This entire show was me asking the gentleman based on things that came out of his mouth. Not all these extra stuff that apparently your peers and your followers of him are now inserting. That never came out of my mouth, so I have to ignore it. The part with Amos and the prophets, he originally said, maybe he made a mistake, but he said it's revealed to Israel. The passage doesn't say that. It says he's revealed to his prophets. The only reason I piggybacked off of that, because the scripture doesn't say he reveals it to Israel. And there have been prophets who are not Israel. There have been prophets who predate Israel and the church. That's the only reason I even mention it. Anything else I have to ignore because that was not my context. And he also said that I said I have my book in front of me. Sal, you know, I never have a Bible open in front of me. This stuff comes off the top of my head. I don't ever have a book in front of me. Every single time I've been in the show, someone says, the Bible says, I have to actually go into my drawer, open my cover, and take my Bible out. Every single time. So that's another insertion. So, I mean, I don't know what you want me to read. You would have to read it yourself. But you didn't ask me anything based on the purpose of the show. The purpose of the show was the gentleman said some things that are wrong. Forget the fact that I disagree with it. He said some things that are wrong. So the purpose of the show was for him to validate the things he said, and he failed to do that. I asked him some very clear and concise questions for him to validate or for him to exude or expound, and he did not. He went all over the place, but he did not answer the questions repeatedly. That was the purpose of the show. All this, but his peers and his callers, I'm glad he's not doing it anymore. So he's showing some level of maturity, but his peers, they're all just basically echoing, oh, you don't know because you're in the New Testament, or you don't know this, or if you knew this. They don't know anything about me. Know nothing about me. This stuff was not even supposed to happen. It's his peers who have interrupted the show, who have turned it into this debacle. But the conversation, the question, Q&A between him and I went exactly as it should have. He said some things that are wrong, and I gave him the opportunity for him to explain it, and then I refuted it. And all I've been is just dismissed. And that's what people do. If you can't refute, you simply dismiss what was said and pretend that you weren't refuted. That is a dangerous, dangerous game to play.
All right, so let's pretty much wrap it up. You know, time is winding down. Again, we're going to get both gentlemen back on the program. I appreciate my special guest for coming on and bringing information to the Debate Talk for you masses. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe to the program on YouTube, of course. Support the show. Just click the Show More box, and you can see all content, all things Debate Talk for you right there. We're on Instagram, all things social media, and just follow the program. Subscribe. All right, so let's get some closing statements. The closing statements is going to be 5 minutes for each special guest. Once we get to the 2-minute mark, when there's 2 minutes left of your time, you're going to hear this sound. And after that, we're going to pretty much wrap it up. So let's go to YHWHudah, Ben Israel. Last words. Go ahead, brother.
Again, the brother mentions about there are no righteous people that died, or should I say righteous people that died that didn't have any children. Again, the righteous people who came upon this earth, they've got seed here today, okay? And you're righteous when you're in harmony with Yah, in total submission and commitment. And they still got seed here today. That's what Isaiah is talking about in the 26th chapter of his book. He knew his dead body would live again because he knew Yah was going to keep his seed on this earth. All of these centuries, okay? And Yeshua's got seed here, just like David's got seed here, just like Yah told Abraham, you understand, he was going to multiply his seed like the stars of heaven. Again, with Israel, we've been whittled down, but as I've said to everybody in the past, I know that there are descendants out of all 13 tribes, males and females, still on this earth of Israel without a question, and you're going to get some males and females out of all 13 tribes that are going to return to Yah, and through those descendants of Israel that return of those 13 tribes, Yah will take those seeds, as he says to us, and he's going to bring them back. All who turn to him with all their heart and soul, plant them in the land, and they're going to, we're going to bear roots downward and branches upward. Okay? And those 13 tribes will blossom and bloom and grow again, this time with holy children, as we see in the 59th chapter of Yeshaya. Sons and daughters, conceived, born, and raised in the fear of Yah, in his laws, statutes, ordinances, judgments, commandments, and precepts. And Yah's covenant with us is that they will be the holy children. They will always be about him from that point on and forever. And that's what Yah's in the process of doing. So again, statements were made. It's been directed at me that my beliefs, I didn't answer any questions, but that's his opinion. He's entitled to that. He's not the first one that has said similar things to me in the past. But as I've said to everybody tonight, wherever you are listening to this, whenever you hear it, if you're not here tonight and you hear it when it's put on our website, when the brother Sal plays it again, then go to YHWHudah.net, our website, and listen. But most importantly, get that King James Authorized Version of the Bible. Make sure that you read the Book of Remembrance yourself. Peace. Yah bless.
All right, man. Appreciate it. On. All right, closing statements, messenger, last words.
All right, so I honestly, of all closing statements, I don't think I've ever been lost for words as I am right now. I really don't even know what to say. And I almost always have a closing statement, but I really don't know what to say. Concerning BA saying, hey, it takes a lot of patience to, yeah, I guess it does, but actually, believe me, BA, I didn't feel angered by it, a little bit agitated, because not really agitated, just frustrated, because I'm asking very specific, very pointed questions, and I'm not getting answers. For example, first one was, can you validate? Validate, meaning can you prove your accusation of New Testament being total idolatry with some examples of actual idolatry? In other words, I want to see where Christians are serving and worshiping idols. That's what the question is. I didn't get that answer at all. And then I had to go and show basically we see this all in the Old Testament, before Israel and even during Israel, over and over and over. Sacrificing babies to idols, lighting candles on the hill, what Abraham did, what Jacob's wife did, what Solomon did for this city. Over and over and over you see idolatry and the worship of idols in Israel in the Old Testament. But you don't see that in the New Testament at all. He should have just said that because you worship Jesus or something like that. At least I could have sunk my teeth into that. But he didn't. He didn't give me any examples. And then the second question I asked him in the Psalms, it says, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand. To say that is David sitting on the throne of God, next to God, is blasphemy. I don't care who you are. It is blasphemy. He keeps saying point blank or point blank period or whatever. I am telling you, to say that King David sits on the right hand of God, with God, is putting him on equal level with God. That is blasphemy, and it is deserving of hellfire. See, here's the problem. And I heard it all night. He doesn't care that he's wrong. He just pitches whatever he believes. And see, here's the problem that I have learned decades ago. Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't believe in hell either. When you remove, it's just like these people that talk about the law. Fakes and phonies, all of you. When you remove the punishments from the law, all you do is babble about the law because you can violate the law, but nobody is punishing you for your violation. That's why you babble about the law so much. So it's the same thing when you remove the belief of hell. You've removed the penalty. You've removed the fear. And you know what that means? You spew error after error after error, and you don't even care because you don't fear where your soul is going to end up. And if you have a belief that this life is it, and after you die, that's it, and the soul is not immortal, then why would you care if you're wrong? That means there's no hell. That means there's no books of recording in heaven. That means there's no judgment. So that's a serious, serious problem with religions who demote the realities of hell. But all night, honestly, I didn't get any questions. I didn't get any answers, sorry. One of them, it was totally ignored when I asked about the 2,500 years. That wasn't even touched, but one of his peers called in and said that he was answering every single question. This was just supposed to be a fact check Q&A. His peers turned it into something a little bit more cloudy, especially the female that called in. His peers done that. He didn't necessarily do it, even though he was assuming much, which he's wrong for. But hey, man, it's been an experience. Honestly, other than that, man, I'm completely lost for words. I am completely lost for words. I would expect someone that has 40 plus years of reading and knowledge to have been at least at my father's level. But I've heard a whole bunch of errors in the 2 times I've heard this gentleman. Good night, Sal.
Help keep the show on the air. If you want to help, you can send your donation through PayPal. The email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com or through Cash App, $Sal Showtime. Thanks for your support.
My name's Kiaja, and if you want to hear the best debates in the world, come check out Debate Talk for You, hosted by my dad, Sal Showtime. Bye.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk for You Radio.